I didn't remember to bring up a wiki.
Lucas, this is Wiki Weekdays. You've not got a wiki.
We've just recorded, Karl. Like, I've literally just come off the back of recording, because I remembered to bring one for, like, recording a video for me, but I forgot to bring one for the podcast.
Yes, because at the moment, things are a little hectic for both myself and Lucas. So I'm doing the intro for this one, even though it might not be the week that I do the intro, but I'm going to roll with it. So yes, welcome to Wiki Weekdays, the series where myself and, well, I should introduce myself first. Don't want to assume people know who I am. I'm Karl Smallwood. I'm the host of this episode of Wiki Weekdays, and I'm joined as ever by Lucas Holland.
Hello there.
And this is the series where we scour the lengths and breadths of the internet to bring a wiki to the table to discuss. And at the moment, things, as mentioned, are a little up in the air because Luke's in the middle of moving and other personal things we don't want to get too much into. But just the next couple of episodes are going to be a little skew-whiff, but that should not affect our upload schedule in the slightest, although it may affect the intro to each video while we struggle through of like, wait, what are we supposed to do this week?
Yeah.
Because we're recording out of time, out of schedule, on days we don't normally record.
Yeah, it's all a bit out of order for us on the back end, but hopefully, provided that things go okay, we should manage to just keep a regular schedule for people and it won't make much of a difference for the viewer.
Yeah. So the more we draw attention to it, the more distracting it's going to be. So let's just move swiftly on. And for anyone out there who is a follower of this podcast, a subscriber to the channel, or dare I say it, a subscriber to the Patreon associated with this channel, something we like to do each week is celebrate a pet belonging to a member of our audience in a little segment we call Pet of the Week. And today's Pet of the Week is Vincent, who lost out on Pet of the Week by like one vote a few weeks ago, and is now Pet of the Week and is midway through like delivering what appears to be a suplex to another cat.
That's the thing is, whoever posted on the Patreon, it just comes up on like the Discord privacy settings as like a letter, so I don't know who submitted it, but the person who submitted it didn't put a name for either of the cats, but I did scroll up and notice that it looks like that this is Vincent, who they've posted about previously.
Yeah, I was comment people say, why is Karl drinking two things at once? I've got a cup of black coffee and a carton of chocolate milk. And Joe Watt is a pro-ass strat. Take a sip of coffee and a sip of chocolate milk. Mate, it's the few, because I've been ill for the last week, and I went to the shop, and I just saw, I can get 10 cartons of chocolate milk for like, a couple of quid. I went, you know what's going to sound great when you're not very well? In the morning, a little carton of chocolate milk and a little cup of coffee. And it's really satisfying to take a nice sip of hot coffee and just chase it with some chocolate milk. It's really satisfying.
I get that, but you know that mockers exist, right?
They do, but do you know what else? Do you know what's better than a mocker? The chaser, the chocolate milk chaser.
The chaser.
The chocky chaser, let's go. I'm starting it, let's go. Not a mocker, the chocker chaser.
Oh, God.
Just as well, like, Lucas, it's a weird question. But you've got, two pet dogs, right? And you must play fight with your dogs.
I don't know if play fight is the right word, because they're this big.
Of course, and that was going to suggest your dogs are roughly the same size as a cat. Mm-hmm. What move do you think would be most satisfying to land on your dog if you didn't have to worry about hurting it? And why would it be a powerbomb? So just imagine do you like the jackknife powerbomb where it's over the shoulder?
Oh,
so imagine jackknife powerbombing a sausage dog.
The thing is, if you powerbomb a sausage dog, do they go from being a long sausage dog to just a regular dog?
Yeah. Or maybe the backbreaker. Again, you didn't have to worry about hurting the animal.
Again, because as somebody that owns sausage dogs, I'm very aware that they can get back problems just via existing.
Yes.
So a backbreaker would be the worst thing you could ever do to a sausage dog.
But it would be satisfying, right?
Oh, God, don't say that. That sounds like you're in for animal cruelty
if you didn't have to worry about hurting the animal. Do you like when you're a kid and you can play fight on a mattress? What you're saying is a sausage
dog plush would be very satisfying to do a backbreaker on, not a real sausage dog.
Or maybe one of those ones where you spin them around, because I reckon you get some RPM on
that. God. Why have you turned Pet of the Week into I mean, to be fair,
because the Pets
Vincent
of the Week
started
are doing
it with the fucking chokehold.
Doing sick wrestling moves. I used to have my old dog, when you play fighting the dog, I'd sometimes go into full on MMA moves on it. Never anything aggressive. Do you know when you nuzzle your dog at side of its neck and it's I'd always just get like the little, like the soft jabs, like the hoo, 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 and the dog's like, I hated it. So that's what you do. Or you give like the dog like the monkey scrub. Joe, you like getting like the nugget to Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Like but you just do it like a little bit on the top of its head, and it's like, yeah.
I mean, not fighting moves, obviously, but I mean, depends how you fight, I suppose. But the thing that I always constantly like to do is like, the raspberries on the dog.
Oh yeah, because they don't know how to handle it, do they?
They don't. You just do it, especially on Oryx, and every time he's and then just gets really excited and starts running around the house and gets zoomies. It's like, yeah.
They don't know how to deal with it, yeah. So that thing, isn't it, of like cats, they're so aggressive and they think they're nature's perfect killer machine, but I can just pick it up and kiss it on its tender little forehead. There's nothing you can do about
play
it.
With its little toe beans. Oh god! And
let us know in like folks at home. Like, join our Discord and let us know what move you think would be most satisfying to like land on a pet. If you didn't have to worry about hurting the pet.
On a pet plush.
No, if the pet would be fine.
I don't care whether you're hypothetical of like, the animal won't be harmed. I don't want discussions about back-breaking sausage dogs on our Discord.
Oh man, it'd be like belly-to-belly German suplex, right? Do you know the ones where you get some distance on it? Because I reckon you could get the dog over the turnbuckle.
So you're saying the German Shepherd suplex?
Oh yes, the German Shepherd. That's good. The belly-to-belly German Shepherd suplex.
Oh dear.
So, do you know there's a sequel to Air Bud where the dogs wrestle? And there's just a shot of someone like elbow dropping the dog. It's like, that dog's got no chance.
No. We need to discuss that on an actual Wiki Weekends video. So
yes,
you
we
can
put clips
in of the wrestling Air Bud.
Well, I've talked about it before. Air Bud is one of those franchises where I always root for the people playing as the dog, because like the one where like Air Bud plays soccer. I hate that one because they act as if like it's okay that the dog's playing football. It's like, but how do I tackle a dog? There's rules in football or soccer to Americans about having 2 feet on the ball. It's a dog, it's got 2 feet on the ball all the time, which means that I can't tackle the dog.
What happens, like most dogs do, when Air Bud just puts it in his mouth and runs?
Yeah, also as the other thing of, in football, a 2-footed tackle is instant red card. Air Bud's always doing 2-footed tackles when it gets to the ball of someone.
Raised 2-footed tackle with like your
which
stud
is always going to be
yeah.
right, because its feet are always up when it tackles someone.
I mean, that's the thing. It's not going to be tackling the ball, it's going to be body checking you. Air Bud's like a big, golden retriever or something, right? Yeah, he's just going to be body checking people.
Yeah. That's one of the things I hate about
but it's a dog, like, get over it. It's like, no, this is not meant to be playing football.
And if it does want to play football, it has to conform to the rules, one of which is it's not allowed to put 2 feet on the ball at the same time, or tackle with 2 feet out. That's against the rules.
God.
Fuck you, Air Bud. The joke I always say is if that was me playing against that dog, I'd snap it in half second one.
I was about to say that I want to see D4, The Mighty Ducks, but no doubt they probably made about 10 of those movies, but
they did make a sequel
to D3, The Mighty Ducks, whatever number they need, where it is just against a team of ducks playing hockey.
Yeah, and all they do is run and kick them.
Like the Mighty Ducks face against the actual team of actually Mighty Ducks.
Do you know that there's a real team in the real world that had to change their name because Disney threatened to sue them, and they would call the Ducks first? So now they're just the Anaheim Ducks. They used to be like the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, and then Disney like, no, we own that now, fuck you, you're the Ducks.
Yeah, we've retroactively copyrighted that even though you did it first. Yep. Stop infringing on our copyright. It's like, okay, Disney, thanks.
Okay, Disney, yeah. And you know what, let's
Mickey
move
Mouse
swiftly
coming in with the shotgun like, aha.
Let's move swiftly on from suplexing dogs and snapping them off on the football field. And Lucas, what wiki have you brought for us this week, my friend?
Well, what I think is fair to mention as well, like, obviously, do the whole like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. It's all free. Jazz, yeah.
If you want to hear us talk about snapping dogs in half more.
And obviously, we normally, when we live stream it and stuff, say all the super chat stuff, but we're not doing this live. But one thing we will mention is that we do, a lot of the time, have Which Wiki won this week, but it's been all up and down and all over the place right now. So some podcasts will have it, some podcasts won't. This one doesn't.
Yeah. So we just say we both winners? Or
we
should
are
both
both
be
winners.
Losers? Should we both be losers or both be winners?
We're not both losers, Karl.
We're sat here talking about Air Bud on a Monday afternoon.
Yeah, that's a winning thing for me.
To be
If
fair,
I
we are
told
winning.
any of my friends,
What
could
did you do this
not be
weekend?
working on a Monday and you could be talking about Airbud snapping people in a game of football instead, I think nearly all of them would take that.
The thing is, I reckon if you 2-footer tackled Airbud, it'd get some fucking height. I'd get it. It's his own fault. Because he's not even wearing boots either. It's not wearing safety equipment. Airbud never wears safety equipment. It can't wear the proper boots.
I was going to say, like, yeah, does it have to wear shin guards and socks and
he's not wearing shin guards, no, that's
trainers and stuff?
He's not wearing shoes, he's not wearing socks.
Does it wear kit?
He's got to wear kit. It's got to be easily identifiable.
How do you know which team it's on if it doesn't wear it?
Technically with Airbud, it's always got his balls out when he's running around the field. If I did that in a game of football, I'd get kicked off the pitch.
That's indecent exposure, Airbud.
It is.
That's an instant red card if we come out with our bits hanging out.
Exactly, yeah. So the one where they play like in the football ones, it always pisses me off the most because like the other team is framed as the bad guys when the guy comes out and says, "We're not playing against the dog." And the other team's like, "What's wrong with us playing with a dog?" And like, it's a dog, it can't obey the rules. Well, it's really good at football. And the referee's like, "Sorry guys, like you forfeit, you're not allowed to play with your dog." And one of the people picks up the ball and kicks it from the halfway line into the back of the net when there's no one in the net and says, "We'd have won anyway." It's like anyone can kick it into the net with no defenders from their hands from the halfway line. This is not the flex you think it is.
And shout out to Oryx with the immaculate time in there. The moment you said we're not playing against the dog, Oryx started kicking off. He's like, no. He's on Airbud's team.
The sausage dog would be so good, though. Imagine that going that line.
Oh, God.
So rapid.
But, you know, I don't know whether I've mentioned this before. The time that I accidentally just, like, kicked Cade like a football.
No? You're the one talking to me like, don't hurt dog. I booted my dog like a football.
It was an accident.
Yeah, doing keepy uppy with your dog.
I didn't set him up on one of the, like, stands and
like
try to hit him through the posts or something.
Just volleyed him into the back of net.
Oh, no, he was, like, quite a young puppy as well. And I was wearing dog behinds at the time, so it makes both of those elements make this story even worse. I just started doing the thing where, like, you've done the same with Cade. If you start running in a field with Cade, he'll, like, run alongside you, right? He'll get all excited and happy. But when he was still younger and more foolish, he just ran straight in front of my foot as I was full sprint with him. And I just accidentally just, like, kicked him 10 feet across the field. And then
you felt so bad, I imagine.
I started immediately crying and went over to Cade and was like, "I'm so sorry." And he was like running around me getting zoomies. He was like, "Let's go."
Well, it's because it's that thing, like, because to the dog, he just felt himself get raised 10 feet into the air. So that was quite fun. It's like that thing, isn't it, where I forget but you see videos every now and again of people with like cats and ferrets or small animals, and they throw them onto the bed, and the animal immediately runs back to do it again. Yeah.
And that's the thing is, I must have got him in a way where instead of like full force kick, it was more of like some sort of like on your foot action, and just like launched him with a scoop of my foot by accident instead of like a proper, fucking boot across the field. But yeah, he was just.
What does that look like to someone watching?
He was just so excited to do it again.
Someone watching that from a distance just saw you full pelt sprint and boot your dog through the air. It's like doing like Anchorman, where Jack Black just boots the dog off the edge of a bridge. That's what people saw.
This is what it felt like. Without even thought, like, second one just started crying and broke down onto the floor. Like, Kate, I'm so sorry.
It's like, I remember when I was younger, it's my stepdad was like, he was playing with a towel with our old dog. He's like whipping it towards the dog to try and get it, like, so he's trying to snap at it.
Oh, yeah.
And he accidentally snapped it and got the dog on, like, the ear.
Like, made like
the sad dog noise. It ran away, and he just left the house immediately. And he came back in with a Big Mac and gave it to the dog. He felt that bad. He went out to McDonald's and got it a burger. Just like,
Oh God. And yeah. Anyway, I don't know how to segue from in dogs and Big Macs and shit to the subject I've got today, so
okay.
It's just going to be a hard cut of this is my wiki, Karl.
And your wiki for this week is?
My wiki for this week is timely for when we record this podcast. It might be a week or so out of date compared to like when this thing is, probably best timed, but we're recording in advance and things are a bit wonky, so it might seem like I'm a bit out of the loop, but I am talking about Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi.
There we go. So this is presumably in preparation for the release of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero.
Exactly, which is definitely already out by the time that this podcast is probably getting put out.
Can't wait.
Oh well.
Can't wait.
And it is, as you mentioned, Sparking Zero is coming out, but this released in Japan as Dragon Ball Z Sparking.
And Sparking has been a feature of all the fighting games, and like Arena Fighters of Dragon Ball, like Fighter Z has a system called Sparking, where your character just gets like an extra burst of energy, and he's able to fight, just keep fighting.
But for some reason that was apparently a bad name in America and US, but they thought Budokai Tenkaichi would be a better name when...
Yeah, which just sounds vaguely Japanese, which I guess works, but Sparking doesn't really convey anything, but neither does Budokai Tenkaichi, although it is very memorable because people still know that name to this day.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, I'll try and just find out the direct translation here, but the Budokai Tenkaichi is just like the name of the tournament that they hold, right?
In Dragon Ball was always a tournament. It's like, in Tekken, the King of Iron Fist tournament, they had like 7 in 3 years. It's like in Dragon Ball, was always a fucking tournament.
There is,
on any given day, you turn on TV and there's just a tournament.
And I know that it's one of those weird things where, like, the tournaments that they do in a Super Arc are different rule sets, and there's, like, the big, massive tournament of power where it's like 100 people enter and one man leaves,
and the rules change on a whim based on what Zeno decides is cool. Like they say, you're not allowed to transform until Zeno's like, no, transforming's cool, you can transform.
Yeah. And, we can't use flight, but then some characters kind of are flying about, but kind of aren't.
So they're
jumping for a really, really long period of time.
There's also characters who have wings, who just, for some reason, decide not to just hide at the top of the arena and wait. They actually get stuck in and say, what are you doing?
But yeah, the Budokai Tenkaichi translates roughly to Strongest Under the Heavens Martial Arts Tournament.
To be fair, yeah.
And
when's Airbud entering that?
Also known as so it's the Tenkaichi Budokai.
So that's what I'm waiting for. The Airbud, Strongest Under the Heavens. And he just wearing like a little gi. And it does like Akuma's pose, but instead of like the symbol for death or whatever it is, it's just the symbol of the number of the sequels that they've had.
Yeah. So it's like, it makes sense of it being a rearrangement of Tenkaichi Budokai after the Budokai games came out. But both of those words mean nothing to us, and even in the Dragon Ball anime for the dub version, I don't think they've ever used those words, so it doesn't really mean anything to us, and it's a really weird choice, I always thought.
Yeah, I much prefer as well, even if it is, a bad translation that reads a bit poorly, it still sounds rad of, Strongest Under the Heavens. It's nothing will ever beat Guys, which is, the Final Fantasy fighting game where it's Guys, and the subtitle is God Bless the Ring. Which is, it's such, that makes no sense, but it sounds rad as fuck.
Because is Guys an acronym for something, or is it just called Guys?
I just know it's the game where you can fight Sephiroth.
Yeah. Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, before
Smash
Kingdom
Bros.
Hearts.
That's the thing, right? Of all of the games where you're able to fight off against Sephiroth, and it's like, oh yeah, Final Fantasy VII, obviously, Kingdom Hearts, Super Smash Bros, and then in that, just immaculate ring is Guys, just bringing everyone down.
I think Guys is one of the most forgotten games ever, but it's noteworthy only because they, for some reason, decided to put Final Fantasy characters in it. You can fight as Red 13. So you can fight as a dog in that game for some reason. Speaking of Airbud.
Boy thing. Yeah. Red confuses me. I didn't really know much about Final Fantasy VII. I hadn't played that game fully
and then
through.
Red 13 turns up and you're like, the fuck is this?
Well, no, I knew about Red 13, But then in Rebirth, where he starts talking like a child, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, okay, that's the thing. I don't like this voice.
What's more confusing, that or Kate Sith?
Well,
it'll never stop cracking me up that the voice actress for Aerith didn't know Kate Sith was. And there's just that footage of her during the cutscene where like Kate Sith turns up, and you see her just go,
and then it immediately cuts
you
away.
worked on the game.
Yeah. But obviously, like, there's no voice lines to Kate Sith at that point, and
just the fact she didn't know what it was is fantastic. I love it. It's so funny.
Speaking of translations, I know that I think it's like a Gaelic thing, right, where it should be like cat she or something like that. But then Square Enix turned around and said, "No, fuck you. We said it wrong. We're going to commit to it being called Kate Sith." It's okay, Square, sure. Yeah.
It was like that. I saw it going around the other day. It was so I got this email and just my Irish ancestors nearly came back to life and beat the fuck out of me. Here's an email for someone. Hi, I'm your liaison for this project. My name is Siobhan, pronounced Siobhan. If anyone doesn't know, Siobhan is spelled Sioban.
Normally H-A-N, right?
It depends on the spelling.
Right, okay.
But it's pronounced Siobhan because it's based on the Gaelic spelling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things, I remember the first time I saw it, I went, Siobhan? It's like, no, Siobhan. I went, oh, I've never seen that word. It's like, it's Irish. I went, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of names like that in, like, Gaelic or, like, a lot of Welsh names as well, where they look like they could be English names, but they're a little bit odd and they don't conform to the same rules. So, like
Owen, right, is another popular one that people get thrown off by a lot. A lot of Americans get thrown off by the original spelling of Owen.
Mm-hmm. Or like,
it was like
Neve.
Neve, another one, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know how we got onto this subject, but anyway, getting back to Dragon Ball itself, Karl.
Yes.
The Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi series is a series of fighting games developed by Spike based on the Dragon Ball manga series by Akira Toriyama, R.I.P. The series was published by Namco Bandai Games in Japan and Europe, and by Atari in North America and Australia until 2008. Didn't realise it was Atari, but yeah.
Yeah. So I know like the Tenkaichi series is the most popular one. I always have a soft spot for Raging Blast. And you know why, Lucas? It's because me and you, back in our uni days, used to get absolutely blind piss drunk and play Raging Blast 1 and 2 till like 4 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we'd always have the stupidest matchups of like, okay, let's go for Child Gohan versus Super Saiyan 3 Broly.
And that's the fun thing about these games, right? Is,
yeah.
Budokai Tenkaichi up to 3 and then Raging Blast 1 and 2 are just all different arena fighters and similar to like probably Xenoverse games, right, as well. Similar vein, which just... Here's a bunch of Dragon Ball characters, and you get to smash your action figures together.
And I will always respect, like, at least the Raging Blast games, for giving you the option, if you really want to play realistic power scaling. So if you pick Super Saiyan 3 Broly, he has, like, 18 life bars. And if you pick, like, Videl, or, like, Captain Ginyu, you have 1 life bar. And it's just a handicap. Okay, beat Broly as Captain Ginyu.
As far as I'm aware, in terms of like pre-release interviews and stuff, that's what they've said is going to happen during Sparking Zero as well. Yeah,
you have a score. So, for example, I think it's 15 points you have, and for some reason, coincidentally, the entire Ginyu Force takes exactly 15 points. But alternately, if you pick like Super Saiyan Blue Vegito, that'll be like 14. Mm-hmm. So if you want to round out that team, you can maybe put like a Yajirobe on there or something.
No, Yajirobe is worth 2 points, Karl.
And that's the thing, and I like that, but at the same time, Fighter Z, I do appreciate that. If you want to play Nappa, Captain Ginyu, and Videl, you'll have just as much chance of winning as long as you're good at the game as you will against someone picking like Vegito, Gogeta, and Beerus.
As long as you're not at like the top, going to like Evo kind of level.
Yeah. And I know some fans disagree. They like it when they get annoyed, for example, when, like Videl can beat Broly. It's like, well, otherwise, you'd only ever pick Broly, right? if the game wasn't at least somewhat balanced, 90% of the cast will be literally useless. Unless you agree to not pick Broly.
I kind of do hope that there's options to turn that on.
Yeah, I like
off.
when there's an option. That's the best. I prefer when there's an option of, if you want to play Videl versus Broly and you want it to have it realistically power scaled, you can. But if you just you like Videl's moveset or a character, and you want to have a fair quote-unquote fight, we'll just normalise attack and damage values.
Because what's the point of even trying to have that fight one-on-one where Broly would take down Videl or someone like that in one punch?
And it's always fascinating when you see fans of a series get annoyed of like, well, why can Videl beat Broly? It's like, otherwise, why would you pick anyone but Broly?
Yeah.
The same fans who've bitched for months about this, even though it's got 185 characters in like Sparking Zero, right?
Something crazy, yeah.
They've bitched every week of like, where's this obscure no-name character no one gives a fuck about? The whole reason you could play as that character is because they don't power scale them. Because if they did, 90% of that cast would be completely useless. There'd be no reason to pick them.
I'm intrigued to see how it's going to go when the game comes out, and the game is presumably out now by the time you're listening to this.
Yes.
But let us know in the comments just how they've handled it all and what options they do have for the different power scaling options, because I do like the fact they're like, fuck it, put Frieza Force Fighter in there, but if the only option is to have them realistically scaled, what's the point of picking them when you can pick Whis?
Unless, like, Whis takes up one character slot, and by picking a weaker one, you can have 5.
But even then, if it was 5 Frieza Force Fighters versus Whis,
it's still
even if all 5 attacked at the same time, they got 0 chance, right?
Exactly, yeah. And it's why it's frustrating to see fans of the series get annoyed that, Broly's not realistically powerful. So, if he was, there wouldn't be a video game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when people complain about, like, my favourite team's not in FIFA, and then they pick AC Milan. So I remember watching my brother play, and he plays
that's a bit of an outdated pick at this point.
Well, either when my brother would play, he'd always play like
fucking
Scunthorpe.
Man City, right?
Yeah, he'd play like Scunthorpe United or like Stoke. They're his 2 teams that he supports, and every time he went online, because they wouldn't, they maybe do now, but in earlier versions of FIFA, you just get matched up with another player. And it's like every single time they're picking AC Milan. And it's just not fair. Like, numerically, they have an advantage. There is no reason not to pick the best team in the game, because everybody else does. Which means
that's the thing.
The other 90% of the players are completely useless.
Before someone comes at Karl for, like, his football knowledge, he just means everyone online picks, like, a 5-star team.
Yes. And it's it's literally not fair, because you have a numerical objective advantage over someone not picking one of the best teams in the game.
Yes, if you don't pick one of these 35-star teams in the game, then you are automatically at a massive disadvantage.
But that's, like, hilarious, because the same fans who only play these really good players, like similar to, like, Dragon Ball games, would moan if you didn't put in, like, a Division, like, 2 team from their hometowns. But why would we spend the money and resources doing that when no one picks them?
I want Tranmere Rovers in the game. It's like, great, but they're not going to be able to do anything against, like, Liverpool.
Yeah. And maybe, like, I think a thing they do in later FIFA games is they go on the overall strength of your team, and you can only match within, like, 5 points either way, right?
I'm not quite sure, because I don't play FIFA online. It is a toxic online game.
It is, yeah. And I imagine Dragon Ball, I'd hope Dragon Ball does something similar of, like, if someone wants to go online and, like, I'm only going to pick Super Saiyan 3 Broly, they only get matched against other people picking characters that powerful.
Yeah.
And if I want to go in as Frieza Force member number 1, I can fight against another person using someone like that.
Yeah. And it's very funny because you mentioned that the game has like 180 characters or something along those lines. That is the point of the Budokai Tenkaichi / Sparking series.
Everyone is here.
But in Sparking Zero, they figured it out, and it's like, well, each character individually, like Goku, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, Super Saiyan Blue Goku, they're all different characters, and
yes,
if you actually figure it out, it's like just under 100 actual unique characters, because there's so many Goku and Vegeta translations. Well, that's the thing as well.
Like, I'm not too big a fan of Goku, but with Frieza, for example, when I'm going to pick Frieza, I want to play as, like, second form Frieza, because I think second form Frieza is a cool version of Frieza. And I consider second form Frieza, especially if he's got a moveset, to be distinct enough from third form Frieza, first form Frieza, to constitute being an entirely separate character. Much in the same way, Ken and Ryu, despite having ostensibly the exact same moveset, with minor variations, can be considered different characters.
Especially towards Street Fighter, like 5 and 6, where they differentiate them a lot more, yeah.
And especially if they've got different moves, different stats, like obviously one's going to be more powerful, but just second form Frieza fights in a completely different way to final form Frieza. So they're like cooler. First form cooler, like ultimate cooler, metal cooler. They all fight differently, all have different moves.
Yeah, and I want to... When it's this kind of game, where it's not fighters, or Fighter Z, whichever way you want to say it, where each character has to be relatively balanced, and it's trying to make it a pretty competitive fighting experience. Like, I don't want there to be every single character in the game because, like, that's unrealistic. But in this kind of scenario, that's the point and the charm of these games. Is just fuck it, everyone's here.
And I can see the appeal of both. I like the competitive element of Fighter Z, but I also appreciate that, hey, someone out there really likes third form Frieza, and they'll be annoyed and they bitch at, like, every time there's, like, new DLC announced for Fighter Z, it's like, oh, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, to be like, where's Zarbon? It's like, on the fucking trash heap where he belongs. It's Zarbon. But in a game where you've got 100 characters, it's like, fuck, you put Zarbon in. Why not?
And this original game was released in 2005 as a PC, PlayStation 2 exclusive. For some reason I said PC there.
Yeah.
But while the second and third installments did release on PS2, they also released on Wii. And I never realised that it skipped GameCube and Xbox. I just kind of assumed that that was one of those games where, of course, it's everywhere. Everything.
And the thing about that's weird about like Tenkaichi for me, and it's really frustrating, and it's something that's kind of happening with the Sparking Zero trailers, is if it's covered on the wiki about the tracks that got deleted.
Oh, maybe that might be a different game. I don't think
it's a game in the
Tenkaichi
series, or it's one of those like Dragon Ball fighting games where the composer was just found out for ripping off a bunch of obscure power metal bands from Europe and thought they'd get away with it. And they ripped off like I think like Power Quest and stuff. And they got in trouble for it, and they had to remove those songs from the game. And like there was that like HD release of Tenkaichi where they just put in like crappy generic butt rock because they didn't want to re-record tracks or make new tracks. They just said, "Oh fuck it, let's get generic music in the background." Because the composer ripped off a bunch of their stuff.
Okay, so it looks like it was for the Budokai trilogy, HD trilogy, not the Tenkaichi series.
But it was for the HD re-release removed a bunch of songs because the original composer was found to have like just we're gonna say took more inspiration than is probably allowed.
It was bad.
And I've seen and listened to the comparisons. It's like they are 1-to-1, and they thought they'd get away with it because what are you ripping off? You're not ripping off like the Beatles or Metallica. I'm getting like obscure-ish metal bands from Europe. And I'm just ripping. And he didn't rip off the entire song, but it's like he rip off the riffs, and they are just 1-to-1.
So it was Kenji Yamamoto, and they have known instances of plagiarism. Do you want me to just go through the list?
Go through the list, like I probably know like half the bands.
Yeah. So
like,
in
spoilers,
the anime,
I'm a huge fan of like power metal. Let's go. If you couldn't tell from the hair.
So I'm thinking. I mean, these are going to be absolutely like just names I cannot pronounce properly. Okay. So bear with me. But in the anime, the known instances of plagiarism are Battle Point Unlimited, which is pulled from various songs from A Secret Wish by Propaganda. I think that's Giri Giri Sekai Kyuken, which rips off Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin.
Okay, that's probably a bit more obvious. Let's see, if you want to rip something off, don't rip off Led Zeppelin. Because even if people don't notice, Led Zeppelin will notice and they'll fucking sue you.
Yeah.
Because it's Led Zeppelin.
And we got Ishin Itai, which is sung from War from Avatar by James Horner. Like some of these are again ripping off like Avatar, then one from Terminator Salvation, opening theme by Danny Elfman, which is the song that he, then used that for is Arata Dateki no Shutsugun. But yeah, stealing from like Avatar and Terminator Salvation.
Well, that's the idea, but then if you translate it from symphonic to a guitar, you'd hope you get away with it. And it's like, do you know the way to do this? Do what Doom does. Of like E1M1 is it's a homage to all things metal. E1M1 like do the dun 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 dun, just Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
But it's a homage to
it's
that
not
genre.
Just directly ripping it off. Yeah.
No, and it's not. It's Master of Puppets and then another song, but I don't quite remember what the other song. Master of Puppets is the better known one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're referencing multiple different things because it's evoking the feeling of that genre of music. It's not just I'm going to take your hook, your lick, your melody.
Mm-hmm.
Change it around. Do you know when people plagiarize? It's like, I'm just going to take this, change around the words a little bit, and that's okay, right?
It's the, copy my homework, but don't make it obvious kind of.
Especially when you're ripping something off like Terminator. It's like you're not ripping that. You're not homaging a genre of music that inspired you. You're trying to pick something that's obscure enough to the audience you're putting this for that no one's going to notice.
Yeah, especially that's the thing, right? Is you notice that all these songs, apart from one, are all like Western songs, and these are all being put into the anime for Dragon Ball in Japan, where they might not be as well known.
And that's presumably why they thought they'd get away with it. Because it's like, who's going to recognise like 4 seconds of a clip from the Terminator Salvation soundtrack?
Mm-hmm. Then you've got Hiso na Ume, which is ripping off Storm from Elizabeth the Golden Age by Craig Armstrong. You got The One, which is surprising because this is taken from Captain Tsubasa. So that's Yushi no Gaisen, which is stealing German theme from Captain Tsubasa 3 Kotei no Chusen by Kiyori Nakabai and Rika Shigeno. And again, I'm trying, everyone.
It's the stuff for Tenkaichi that's interesting, though, because I remember it being like a bunch of like just power metal bands. And it's like, you could have gotten away with that if you just... Because I feel like if you'd not directly ripped off the riff, but instead took the riff and remixed it and built upon it and used and credited it as an inspiration of like, well, this kind of music's that's the kind of tone we're going for. So I took their riff and I added my own little melody to it. It's like, don't rip... But you're a musician, just add a flourish.
Honestly, if you listen to it, it's
nearly
one for one, yeah. And then the last one from the anime is Ya na Koto Niwa Genki Damae.
We're not Japanese, it's fine.
Yeah, which steals from a little known song called Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple.
Don't rip off Smoke on the Water. That's the literal first thing everyone learns to play on guitar.
Dun, 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 dun,
and again, do you know the first thing I did after I learned to play that riff? Is I started adding flourishes to it. And you start like adding like, instead of doing it in the exact order, you'd like, you try and get a little bit fancier, they put a bit of spice on there.
Yeah.
That's the literal first thing I learned on guitar, is like, once you've learned how to play something, start adding your own twist to it.
Oh, God. And then we get onto the video games here. So, Cell's theme in Dragon Ball Z Super Butoden 2 steals from One of These Days by Pink Floyd. It's like the balls, man. Just going straight for Pink Floyd immediately.
And again, do you know what gets away with this? JoJo. Where JoJo is
really?
It's unapologetically based on music, right? All the characters are named after musicians and stuff.
I've seen 4 episodes, Karl.
Okay, and all the soundtracks, though it's not ripping off the music, but if you listen to it, that sounds like a Led Zeppelin track. And it's like, no, it's just we're such a fan of Led Zeppelin, we're going to add our version of it.
And then we get to the Budokai games. So Dragon Ball Z Budokai had Move Forward Fearlessly, which is stealing from Glory of the World by Stratovarius.
Great band. Go give him a listen.
There's 3 different songs that he steals from by Stratovarius here.
Yeah, is one of them Black Diamond? That's my favourite Stratovarius song.
No, it's not.
Listen, that's a whip-ass song. Go listen to that one.
Okay. Challenges from Budokai is stealing from Hunting High and Low by Stratovarius.
Well, that's a good song as well. There's a few bands out there, because that's one of their better-known songs. There's a bunch of really great covers of Hunting High and Low, because it's just one of those, like, it's not very well known in a wider audience, but if you're a fan of, like, power metal, that's, like, just one of those songs that's, like, every band who's, like, inspired by that Eastern European. I think it's Eastern European. I always get confused, but that genre of music from that region always do a cover of Hunting High and Low.
Oh, okay, cool. And then the last Stradivarius song that rips off here, so A Stranger from Budokai rips off Infinity by Stradivarius.
Also a great song.
And then the last one from the first Budokai game is Thrilling, which rips off Iron Man by Black Sabbath.
And again, another riff that's really, really simple. Like, dun, 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 dun. Do you know the first thing I learned after I learned that riff? Put a bit of spice on it. Add a bit of flavour. Put a bit of sauce on this. Just like, ooh. Like, no, just knock it down a bit on the neck. Make it sound a bit like, add a pinch harmonic in there. Why not?
And I would really encourage people, as we are saying, that like they rip them.
Go listen to how blatant it is. Go listen
to some of the comparisons.
And all they needed to do was just put a bit of flavour on it. And the fact they didn't is why it's lazy.
Yeah.
Because like, there are plenty of songs that get away with this. Like, go listen to anything by Demetore, a guitarist who does like a bunch of like guitar music. Mm-hmm. And they will frequently, when you're listening to one of their songs, like, oh, I know that riff. Well, they'll do the riff, and then it'll build as they repeat the riff like 3 or 4 times, as they build upon it to add their own element to it. And they take like le motifs from, I think it's Toho, like they do like a lot of covers of, or maybe they work with I don't know.
And that's the thing, right, is obviously we're aware that like parody covers and covers of songs exist, but they didn't. They tried to claim this as their own new music.
Original composition, yeah. They didn't do what like Mick Gordon did, for example, with the Doom soundtrack, where it's like, this is absolutely 100% a love letter to the game, which itself was a love letter to the genre of heavy metal. I, of course, took inspiration from newer bands and older bands. Mm-hmm. You'll hear like elements of their music in my music, but it's my own original composition.
Exactly, yeah. And then we move on to Budokai 3 for 2 more songs. Alzora Odekishibete, I don't know.
Song from the game.
Song from the game is Stealing from Be Good to Yourself by Journey. And then Capsule Obtain is Stealing from September by Earth, Wind and Fire. And then there's one as well from as new as Xenoverse. From the network test of Xenoverse, the theme song rips off No Leaf Clover by Metallica. And
here's the thing as well, if there's that many examples from that broad a range of that broad a history, you know there's more, right?
More than likely, right?
That's the rule about plagiarism, right? Like, no one plagiarizes by accident, and no one plagiarizes once, because the moment they realize they got away with it the first time, just encourage them to do it again.
Because those are relatively like well-known bands and stuff.
So how many
times did they go to a band with 100,000 listens on Spotify and steal something from them?
Yeah, like Stradivarius are pretty well known, at least within the subgenre that they exist in.
Within that community, right? Yeah.
How many smaller bands, like licks from other songs, did they just take and adapt well enough that it didn't get known? And the thing as well, again, you could get away with that if you just acknowledged it. When you were doing like an interview for like the music and stuff, like, oh, so what was your inspiration? Oh, I went and listened to a bunch of like European power metal. Here's the list of bands that I took from, and I really like this riff from this song. It's really catchy. I thought I could adapt that, and I added my own flavour and my stuff to it. But he said, no, I made it. It's all mine.
And this is where you might be getting a bit confused, Karl, because I've gone back to the wiki for Budokai Tenkaichi.
Okay.
And it says, while Sparking features actual music from the DBZ anime series, as well as the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball GT anime, as composed by Shunsuke Kikuchi, the American release of the first game features recycled music from the Budokai series, composed in Japan by Kenji Yamamoto, who's the one who plagiarized.
Yes. And then the reason I was mentioning it in regards to Sparking Zero is because every trailer for that game has been like, hey, here's a really whip-ass song from like the anime. And then there'll be a little thing at the bottom that says, not in the final release. It's like, stop putting it in then! Like when they did like the Gogeta trailer, and they play like the Gogeta theme from the anime, it's like, this theme's not in the game. It's like, don't put it in the trailer then!
Oh, God.
Also, how do you not get the rights to that song for this game?
Yeah. Oh, that's annoying. But hopefully they do have a non-plagiarized and cool-sounding soundtrack.
Well, I think Dragon Ball games always have fucking... Like, Dokkan Battle is the example I always use of. That is a crappy gacha mobile game. It has, like, 150 unique tracks that are just like sick, awesome butt rock.
Mm.
And there's like throughout the series, there has been like leitmotifs for characters. Like, for example, Vegeta has a theme, Goku has a theme. And then for the Vegito Blue Dokkan special event, they combined the elements of those two themes to create the Vegito theme.
Oh, right, okay,
for a gacha game for the mobile.
And like, yeah, I always just enjoy a lot of the different Dragon Ball soundtracks, but I can't not just mention like Fighter Z.
Which goes so hard, right?
Like, just the soundtrack is incredible, and I think we've done like an episode or two before where we've put in clips on the podcast. We, generally don't, but like, yeah, just things like, for example, the one I always think of first when it comes to fighters is the Cooler theme.
Yeah, his song is 7 minutes long. There's more of his theme song than he has appearances in the anime. Like, his song is almost as long as his on-screen appearance, and it's fucking sick.
That's the thing, right? Is like, Cooler, for anyone that doesn't know, is like only in a couple of movies and is non-canon. But for some reason, they decide to give him like the greatest song of all time for fighters.
Yeah, and it's just this really I'm trying to think, like, chugging guitar track.
Mm-hmm.
That then out of nowhere, you just have this like super awesome just like melody come in. And it's like it's the background for a fight against a character who has 8 minutes of screen time. And then like every character has their own unique thing, like the Super Broly's theme, where it's inspired by the Super Broly movie, but they put their own spin on it. Where it just starts like the orchestral like and then just goes straight into like a chugging guitar riff because it has to because the fight started.
Does it do that thing where it goes like Broly?
It doesn't do that, but it does have the orchestral start.
Because I love the soundtrack to the Super Broly movie, but I really can't get behind the chanting of their names within the song.
Yeah, I don't like that song. I like the intro to it, but I don't like the Broly bit because it's distracting.
Not a fan of it, but I know some people who really like that element of those songs.
And it would be cool if that song was in the game.
Mm-hmm. Imagine trying to have a unique song for every single one of like the 180 people in Sparking Zero.
Dokkan might have it. Like, maybe not for like Frieza Force member number 1, but like I said, I'll double check now as you go
Frieza
to the
Force
wiki.
number 1.
I'm going to double check how many unique original songs Dokkan Battle has.
I want to hear how hard they go for Frieza Force member.
Okay, so I have here, just on YouTube, there's the Dokkan Battle OST. It is 322 videos long.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
Like, some of them are the same song, or the same song remixed slightly. But
that's the thing, right?
Characters included, just Vegeta, Bio Broly. Like, Broly's got 8 different theme songs.
Bio Broly got his own song.
Trunks, Master Roshi when he's teamed up with Krillin. Jiren has like 3 or 4 theme songs. Goku has one for every one of his forms. Cell Max has one. Future Trunks, Past Trunks, Ultimate Gohan, Mystic Gohan. The pirate themed adventure they did as a crossover with another show. Boo, Super Boo, Ultimate Boo, Captain Ginyu, Toppo, like God of Destruction Toppo, all the forms of Frieza, Goku Black, Gamma 1 and 2, Orange Piccolo, Beast Gohan, Beerus. It's like
everyone.
And they're all sick.
And when you say pirate crossover, it wasn't with One Piece, was it?
I don't know. I'm just looking at the thumbnail. And it's just, there was apparently a Dokkan event where they just have Goku wearing a pirate hat. And it got its own theme song. It got its own unique piece of music for the game. For a mobile game. And the guy doing the Tenkaichi couldn't compose his own tracks.
But that's
Yeah, sorry.
That's the annoying thing, right? Is that we'll get a soundtrack like that for the mobile game because that is just a money-making machine.
It is, yes.
Like, it's so upsetting that game will get more money put into the soundtrack than any of like the console video games will.
And no doubt as well, of all these songs, there is probably a lot of influence taken from just classic rock and metal and stuff like that.
That's how music works, yeah.
It is, yeah. And as long as you acknowledge it, it's fine. It's the quote, isn't it, of like, it's plagiarism if you steal from one person, it's research if you steal from all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And all you need to do is just acknowledge it. And it's why it's so frustrating when people plagiarise. Of like, all you need to do, rather than just take their idea and reword it, take their idea, present it exactly as they wrote it, and then just tell us your own thoughts. Because that's called quoting.
But no,
And that works, and that's perfectly fine. In fact, it's encouraged in academia. They want you to look at other people's ideas and then tell us what you think about them, interpret them in your own way. They don't want you to present those ideas as your own. Same for music.
Yeah, that's how different forms of art progress and change over the years, right? Is that people are always inspiring one another and pushing each other further. And instead, he just went, yeah, but how about I just steal a Led Zeppelin song? That sounds like fun.
All you need to do is like, oh, look, this is a riff from a Led Zeppelin song I like. I thought it worked for this character, so I put my own spin on it. And acknowledge it as a reference.
But anyway, going back to the game itself.
Yes.
I will say, it's more annoying that not only do I think sparking just sounds a bit more fun, but it also meant that they get better like subtitles for each game, because we got Budokai Tenkaichi and then 2 and 3. They got Sparking Neo, and Sparking Meteor. I'm like, that sounds way better. I want Budokai Tenkaichi Meteor instead of 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, the games came out in like 2005, 6, and 7, just back to back to back, because it was just
Moneymaker, right?
Basically an update with a couple of extra characters and stages thrown in.
And people ate that shit up.
I certainly did.
Yeah, and Dragon Ball fans will never get enough, and there's always going to be complaints. I saw it the other day. Do you know the trailer announcement of like, hey, fighter Sparking Zero, 185 characters. I was like, surely no one could be complaining about this. Top comment, where's Hachiak? From like the Raging Blast 2 OVA. Are you fucking kidding me?
The random OVA that was like meant to release on VHS or did like release limited on VHS 20 years ago or something, that got remastered for Raging Blast 2.
And it's like, they will never be happy. There's no reason ever try to accommodate or create content for those kind of people, because they will never be happy. Because the instant that you do it, it's like, well, where's this? It's like, they put 185 characters in. And you see the video of the guy announcing it, he looks knackered. People are still complaining.
There's like the version of Shin Shenron where he's got 6 of the 7 Dragon Balls inside of him and not all 7.
Yeah.
Because Goku ate the 4-star Dragon Ball.
So the one I sort of like, where's Chi-Chi? And it's like, there's going to be a Girls' Night Out DLC that has like a bunch of female characters in it, because why would there not be? This game's going to have DLC out the wazoo for the next 20 fucking years.
I mean, Xenoverse did, right?
Yeah. But
the Xenoverse, I think, is still getting DLC now. Or very recently, at least.
Just amazing, like that, and people still complain. Like, where's Hatch? Is that really going to be the deal breaker for you?
You're not going to buy this game because Hachiak's not in it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll just go play with my 14 Gokus.
I'm pretty sure they've got 2 different versions of guy I can't even... Bojack. I think they've got 2 forms of Bojack, Super Bojack in there. Yeah.
They put like Typon in it.
It's like they're literally going as far as the non-canon movies.
Yeah.
And, like, obviously a lot of the Budokai games already did that, but, like, they're literally going through all of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball Super,
every
and
movie.
All of the non-canon shit that came along with all 4 of those.
Like every movie villain, almost every movie villain's got like a place in it. And that's the thing I saw as well. Like, and they're also doing that, you can make up your own fucking scenarios. And what's always like, it's what would happen if Broly landed on Earth when the Saiyan arc was happening. People are like, well, what are they going to do against Broly? They're going to lose to Broly? It's like, so you're going to, this what if scenario, you're just going to bitch about it because it doesn't.
What? You just like another Dragon Ball game for the 50th
to tell
time
you the same story you've already seen
that tells you the story of the anime? Cool, yeah, sure.
So they complain about the what if stuff, it makes no sense why will Broly lose. It's almost like it's a what if. What if Broly wasn't as strong as he was in the previous show, so we can have this what if scenario that's fun? Wouldn't that... No. Broly would win. Oh.
And to give some context, Budokai Tenkaichi, released in 2005, had 64 playable characters and 10 stages. And I don't know how they're categorizing forms and characters in each one, so just bear with me, I'm just reading from the wiki.
Of course, yeah. There's probably a lot of Gokus in there.
It does clarify in Tenkaichi 2, the game originally featured 100 characters in 136 forms with 16 stages. But the Japanese and PAL Wii versions came with 5 additional characters. Do you want to know what they were, Karl?
I'm guessing it'd be like either new forms.
I don't think you're going to get any
No, is
of these.
it like movie characters like Typon or something, or like Dr. Wheelo or some shit?
It is Demon King Piccolo, Cyborg Tao, Apul.
Oh, Apul! Yeah, he's like the Frieza Force member who loses the Dragon Balls. He's like the joke character I always suggest, Apul. So he's mentioned in the Team 4 Stars dub of like, Zarbon, where are the Dragon Balls? I left him with Apul. It's like, you left him with Apul? It's the only reason I know him, because he just gets shit on by Frieza directly.
Then we've also got the Frieza Soldier and the Peel-Off Robot combined form.
And that's the thing, if they didn't pull that in, someone would complain. And there's probably someone who got that game out and like, where's Launch?
Launch got done dirty.
She did, to be fair. Like
Toriyama forgot she existed.
Which is fair, yeah. It's like doing like different...
She was a really good character.
She was. Some people forget about characters, and it's like, where the fuck is that version of Trunks that's super buff? Who's in one episode?
Yeah.
Where's that version of Super Saiyan that wasn't Super Saiyan where Goku's orange?
Oh, yeah, from like Lord Slug, where they knew Super Saiyan was kind of a thing, put it in the movie, but Super Saiyan wasn't finalised yet.
Yeah, because
some crazy story like that, right?
I think it's like it was in the manga,
but not the anime.
And they weren't sure how they were going to realise Super Saiyan in anime, so they just copied what the manga looked like and just made Goku glow orange.
Man, what a wild time. And yeah, then Tenkaichi 3 features 98 characters in 161 forms, the largest roster in a fighting game at the time. Any fighting game, it seems.
Yeah. And Mugen came out and was like, nah, fuck you.
And Ryo Mito once stated that the game would feature never-before-seen characters made exclusively for the game.
Yeah, they were like fusions and stuff, right? You could like fuse random characters together, and they always include...
that was like Budokai 2, I think.
That's where you got... Yeah, because I think they did like a bunch of like what-if things like Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and stuff like that, right?
Because they did loads of different, I believe, like Fusion Dance or Patara earring, like fusions of like, what if Yamcha and Tien fused together?
And that's where you got like Super Saiyan 3 Broly and stuff, right? And Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta. Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta was in like the Tenkaichi and Raging Blast games. He never had that form in the manga, did he?
Yeah.
They're like forms that technically should exist but have never been seen yet. They put them in those games. Like legendary Super Saiyan 3 Broly, who was green, if you remember that one. Like green Broly with the Super Saiyan 3 hair.
Oh, yeah.
In the game like Triple Eraser Cannon or some shit like that.
And I didn't know this. Yes. Apparently in Tenkaichi 3, the PlayStation 2 version features the Disc Fusion system, where inserting Tenkaichi 1 or Tenkaichi 2 disc unlocks the Ultimate Battle or Ultimate Battle Z modes.
I can see that.
Which were featured in the respective games needed to unlock them.
Why not?
And I love the fact that the game also supports 480p for both the Wii and PS2 versions.
That was pretty good at the time. That's the thing, considering how much bullshit was on screen.
And now it goes to Sparking Zero, where it mentions 182 playable characters for Sparking Zero. It doesn't say
Super Broly's DLC, right?
That's 182 forms across like 90-something characters, I think.
And then I think Super Broly is DLC, taking it up to 185.
Right, okay, yeah.
Then there's a bunch of DLC planners going to have like Paragus and all that nonsense, and whoever the goobers who backed up Turles was. Because we've got to get all the goobers in, right? Where's Thouser?
Right. Like, Turles is enough of a goober as he is.
Yeah, but where are the goobers?
Where are the goobers? And it does also mention that PSP had a Tenkaichi tag team game.
I can see it.
But yeah, I don't know much about the PSP version. It just says the game focuses on 2-on-2 fights. Dragon Walker is the main story mode. I love how every time it's like the Z-Gate mode or the Dragon Walker mode.
And it's just
story mode.
Play through the story again.
Yeah. Other modes include Battle 100, where the player fights many teams, and Free Battle, where the player can fight any team of their choice.
Well, that's the fun, right? Because that's always the thing. The reason you want it is I want Videl versus... And the reason I keep saying Videl versus Broly, because I remember one of the interesting things about the way Videl played in one of the Raging Blast games is she had no Ki Blasts. Because she doesn't. She never had them in the anime or the manga. Why would she have them in this? But she had, to compensate, she's the only character who could combine super moves. So she could do like her super move followed by another super move. And I remember my friend who picked Super Saiyan 3 Broly was thinking, well, I was going to erase the cannon all day. It's like, but Videl, as soon as you close the distance, can just stun lock you to death. And the thing is, we had it on like the final like power scaling, so it did no damage. But because it was stun lock, because Broly's so big, and no matter
it was
what
just
he did,
like a 10-minute fight of Videl slowly wearing Broly down.
no matter what he did to dodge, because Broly is just so physically large, he always got caught by Videl's like impact. And I think what she had is she had like the Frankenstein, she puts like the leg around your head and throws you forward. But I did that in the corner, so it throws you forward, but you're still in the hitbox, so you can just do it endlessly. So it's just Super Saiyan 3 Broly, just stun locked against a wall, getting like leg thrown. And there was nothing he could do.
There was also like basically no damage coming out of Videl.
And that's the thing, I'm going to play that game online, and I'm going to figure out who's the worst character in the game, but then we're going to have some bullshit like that. And I'm going to beat those knobheads who think I'm going to pick Super Saiyan 3 Broly and win every fight because he's super strong. It's like, nah.
No, I mean, it'd be like, what, Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta or something like that, yeah.
You always get the people who do that. They just pick the strongest character in the game. It's like, why are you complaining that there's not 5,000 characters if all you're going to play is Goku?
And that's the thing, right, is these were not incredible fighting games or anything. Again, just the allegory of mashing your action figures together. And that's what these games were. And they were... On Metacritic, this is wild on Metacritic, because Budokai Tenkaichi 1, a Metacritic of 72.
Yep.
Budokai Tenkaichi 2, can you guess what the Metascore is?
It's either going to be higher or lower. It's going to be higher if it's reviewed by fans, it's more of the same, or if people are reviewing it as a video game, it's going to be lower. So I want to say 6 out of 10. Okay.
On the Wii version, it got 72, and on the PS2 version, it got 73.
Okay, so 7 out of 10 seems fairly standard.
A Metacritic score of 72 going into the sequel of 72 or 73. And then, can you guess what Budokai Tenkaichi 3 got?
72.
72 on the Wii and 73 on the PS2. It's like, I don't think I've seen a trilogy of games where the Metascore stays the exact same.
You know what? Yeah, that's the thing. If you are a fan of Dragon Ball... That we always talk about the idea of the 7 out of 10, where it's not a bad score, but it's not a fantastic score. And the score can be lower. Like a 7 out of 10 can be a 10 out of 10, someone who's a fan. And there's plenty of people who are fans of Tenkaichi who consider those games to be the apex of Dragon Ball games. And those fans shit on stuff like Fighters, which is objectively a better game.
It's a better, more competitive fighting game in that genre, yes.
But they might consider it to be a worse Dragon Ball game because, for example, it doesn't have 150 characters. If you're
and
a fan
it doesn't
of Dragon
have
Ball,
you flying freely around environments, and it's not as accurate to the portrayal of the actual anime and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and if you're a fan of that stuff, that game would be better. But likewise, if you're a fan of video games and you're not too into Dragon Ball, they don't control the best, they're unintuitive, they're horribly unbalanced.
And that's the thing is, which experience are you in on? Do you want a fighting game or do you want a Dragon Ball game?
Yep.
Because objectively, I think as a Dragon Ball experience, Budokai Tenkaichi is a better great. Dragon Ball game than Fighters.
Yep. But as a fighting game, Fighters is better. And if you're a fan of Dragon Ball, all the better, because then you get all the neat references and stuff.
And I'm really looking forward to having a more updated, easier to play version of the Sparking series when Sparking Zero comes out, because I get that nice thing of, well, it's new, awesome looking, amazingly clean art and stuff like in Fighters, but also I get to have just the fun, dumb experience of going back and playing the Tenkaichi games.
I get to say, okay, it is Super Saiyan 3 Gogeta versus the Great Saiyaman.
Yeah,
so you know what I'm playing the Ginyu Force online, right? I'm rolling with a squad. 5-on-1, fuck you.
That was always one of the fun things, is like, again, I think it was one of the Tenkaichis that I remember playing where I picked Bert so many times because his punches and kicks were so fast it looked funny.
I always like, when he does his one punch hits 15 times. Well, we've seen as well, like one of his fated battles, Dispo. The supersonic rabbit from Super. They have a fated battle against each other. And it's like, you know what as well? I can't wait to see all the dumb interactions from characters who never would have met. I want to see what Captain Ginyu says to Jiren. And I want to see if, like, Jiren acknowledges the fact that the Ginyu Force is similar to the Pride Troopers.
I want to see what Dispo says against Berta, because even Goku was faster than Berta and gave him shit at the time of like, well, I guess you're not the fastest in the universe after all.
I always liked as well, I'm the fastest in the universe! He's like the one voice from that series everyone can do right.
Uh-huh.
And I guess we've got to mention Team Force, how they do it, of like, well, technically, Guldo can stop time. So is it, shut up! I am not slower than Berta! I'm not slower than Guldo!
Yeah.
It's like, well, the captain's got a greater power level than all of us. It's like, shut up! Also, just Space Australia.
Let me just have this one thing.
Also, just Captain Ginyu being like, oh, that is a shame. It's like, yeah, he was a really strong member of our team, and he's blue. What? Well, he's blue. He kind of throws off our colour scheme.
That is one thing that, like, you know, shout out to just the design of them. They all have the different pose, colour, shape and like silhouette and everything. Just they're such a well-designed team.
Yeah, way better than the Pride Troopers because Jiren is so triangular. He takes up everything.
Yeah,
because can you remember any other member of the Pride Troopers except for Dispo and Topo? There's like 14 members of the Pride Troopers.
Wait, I thought there was literally 3.
No, there's a bunch of goobers behind them, and you don't remember any of them because they're not as memorable. No. Whereas the Ginyu Force, everyone remembers every member of the Ginyu Force.
Mm-hmm. Oh god, like I do apologise for everyone looking at just green me today, but I'm just my ring light's bouncing off a green screen. Bear with me.
It's Guldo Lucas. It's got to stop time.
It is. Well, speaking of stopping time, Karl, I think it's time to take a break.
But before that, Lucas, what's like the goober you're most looking forward to playing as? I think for me, it's going to be like I love playing as the Ginyu Force because it's like just when people get styled on by Guldo, they hate it.
Yeah,
everybody hates losing to Guldo.
God, yeah. I mean, I did always like just playing the annoying small characters, like just picking like Goten or something like that.
I also liked I think it was Raging Blast where you picked Chaozu. And Chaozu, because that's the thing about playing the weaker characters, they usually have more interesting moves. Like something that I'm always annoyed by is, why is it that at some point in Dragon Ball, everyone seems to forget they can control the direction their ki goes in? Because if you think about a Spirit Ball, the thing, like, even though it's not very powerful, the shit Yamcha can do with the Spirit Ball is way more impressive than anything Goku does with the Kamehameha in regards to his control over it. Like, Yamcha straight up can control the arc of his Spirit Ball instantly from a mile away. Goku never does anything similar with his Kamehameha, even though he probably could.
He makes it like follow people slowly every now and then, but he doesn't do anything as direct as just here's a fucking spirit bomb that I've just gone like boop, and just pushed down really quickly.
And the thing is, like,
just flown around.
It seems like an ability from way later in the series. It's literally one of the first things anyone ever does. Like Krillin, where he's like Spread Shot, where he just launches the ki blast into the air and then controls its direction down and uses it to cover his approach. Like, no one else thinks of doing something like that.
Well, just shout out to Piccolo.
Oh, yeah, so Piccolo, like this Hellzone grenade.
Yeah.
But almost every attack from like a later Dragon Ball character is just a direct ki blast that goes in a straight line. That's why I like Chaozu. Right, is like,
you know, even Vegeta goes from like, admittedly, it's still just a regular attack. Like, he has like a Gallic gun to start with, but then, like, at least he had interesting things like, the dirty fireworks, for example. You've never seen him do that since.
Never again. That's why I like, because Chaozu in Raging Blast had his telekinesis throw, and he'd throw a rock, but it'd go so slowly, you could actually throw like 3 or 4 from the other end of the map, and they would stay on the map the entire time.
And they'd just slowly track you, and then you could like rush in, get them guarding, and then all of a sudden just a little rock just hits you from the back.
You could use it to safeguard your attacks, because if they try to punish an attack, they get hit by the rock, which you threw like 30 seconds earlier. And no other character could do that, because everyone else's attacks were just big ball that went in a straight line.
Oh, I can't wait to see how many people in the cast have, like, full energy volley or whatever it was called. You know, the ones where it's just like
full power
the
energy wave
or full power energy beam. It's like, God, like that's one of the downsides of having such the expanded roster is that
not all of them have a
the
moveset.
characters just had generic moveset number one.
It's one of the reasons I like playing as Raditz as well, because Raditz's whole moveset revolved around counters, and no other character in the game had a counter. Because like his thing,
Double Sunday.
Yeah, but his thing from like the anime is like when someone sneaks up behind him, he elbows in the stomach. So they represented that by giving him a counter, and no other character in the game had a counter, which was super powerful against really aggressive opponents who think, "I'm just going to run and punch you on Broly," and just Raditz is like counter, and it always worked because he's the only character who had one, so everyone always fell for it.
Because no one was playing Raditz.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I was at an advantage by playing Raditz because I had the Raditz advantage. Because no one expects you to pick him, and no one knew how he worked.
No one's ever said the words "the Raditz advantage" before.
Exactly, and that's why it worked. Or the off-meta pick.
But anyway, yes. We should take a break for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back and talk about Karl's wiki.
No problem.
And welcome back, Karl.
Yes. Well, it's you've got to do the intro for this one. I did the intro to the first segment. Now it's time for you.
It's some just little bits of housekeeping, right? Of just
a segue.
Reminding everyone, like, share, subscribe, all that lovely jazz. It is free to you as viewers and helps us out, so it's much appreciated. But also just a reminder that we always have, different like votes and stuff going on our Patreon, and you can submit to Pet of the Week by being a patron and being on our Discord, and then we are hopefully at some point having a stretch goal towards like making some gaming content, including probably like splitting off into like its own new channel and stuff like that.
It'd have to be, right? 'Cause something we've learned in the many years we've been doing this is one of the worst things you can do when you have a good idea or an idea that has a very specific tone and format and audience is immediately shift and start doing something else. You spin that shit off.
That's why most bigger YouTube channels, they might have quite a lot of different ideas, and each idea gets its own separate immediate spin-off channel.
Yes.
Because it's just bad for all the algorithm stuff to have like multiple different things going on and people watching like half of your videos but not the other half because they're different types of content. So it'd probably be something separate, but just a reminder that, we haven't officially submitted stretch goals because I'm going through like a lot of moving and stuff at the minute, so we're just sorting all that out first, but just a reminder that is something we are aiming towards, and that support over on Patreon would help towards that eventual like stretch goal that's coming down the line.
We'd probably better though wait, and then we'll announce what we're going to do. 'Cause I feel bad asking people to like commit to something without at the very least some promise.
But that's the thing, right? Is I'm just saying, it might help us get a head start, but obviously, definitely if you are just only supporting for the reason of maybe gaming content, just wait and see what we announce for stretch goal and stuff like that. Yeah,
and then what we'll do is like we've got enough gaming content that we did years and years and years ago. So I feel like a year of Wiki Weekend stuff, 5-7 years of Fact Fiend, and then like 2-3 years of our own gaming content. We've got enough of a backlog, but we need to collate it all into one pitch for people.
Yeah, exactly right. Let people know what they're signing up for, and we will do that properly. But just it's one of those of if people just generally want to support us, Karl, and that's one way to do it. But anyway, I suppose for now, like my terms of housekeeping, I've got nothing to plug because I'm not doing any streaming or anything at the moment. I'm focusing on like adult life things.
Yes.
But Karl, you obviously do normally stream Metal Gear Rising Revengeance of a weekend.
Usually yes, but that's just the same Twitch stream. It always is twitch.tv/Karl's Wood. If you're interested in that, you can check it out in the links below alongside all the other stuff promoted. But at the same time, like, I do the same thing every single week. By this point, I don't really need to promote it, besides saying people that it exists.
Yeah. Karl, what have you brought as a wiki then?
Well, we're still in the month of October, or hopefully this goes up at some point in October, which is Spooky Month.
Think this will go up in October?
If it doesn't, just pretend that it is. And speaking of slamming action figures together, I thought we could talk about the wiki entry on Freddy versus Jason.
Okay. Three things I'm not very familiar with. This film, or the film franchises that either of them come from.
Well, you're aware, though, of Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, no doubt through pop culture osmosis, two of the most iconic slasher villains in the history of cinema.
Yeah, those are those guys from that Mortal Kombat game, right?
Yeah. It's the trifecta, right? I often flip between as well, because it's Freddy, it's Jason, and then Michael Myers or Leatherface.
Michael Myers.
Yeah, I think at this point, because Michael Myers has had more movies, but I do think that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies are better in quality.
But in terms of, like, from the outside, as somebody who is just going off, like, which ones are the big three,
it's Michael Myers.
I do not really know much about Leatherface in comparison to Michael Myers at all.
Yeah, like, Leatherface did get a movie, I think it was like in 2 or 3 years ago. It was on Netflix. It was okay. It was a direct continuation of the original story, which is funny because the movie was made in the 70s. So in that movie, like, Leatherface is like 70 years old. And it's Leatherface killing millennials or Gen Zers because they're all on their phone saying, "Bro, you're going to get so cancelled." And then he just gets a chainsaw and dead rising his way through a bus.
It didn't do well because it went woke and went broke. Got it. Right,
well, if anything, it was making fun of that. And it still did poorly because it just wasn't a good movie.
And that's the thing, right? Is like, it's always the way of, oh, well, if something doesn't do well, it's because it was woke, and it's like, we got the better of them. And then if it did do well, it's, well, that one doesn't count because of X, Y, and Z bullshit reasons.
There's that, like, Asmon Gold dipshit, who's, like, the source of 90% of, like, toxic gaming discourse online, is bitching and moaning because games that he likes or wants to play are considered woke, like that Warhammer game. It's like, I want to play that Warhammer game. And everyone's like, no, it's woke. And it's like, maybe it's like, you're about this close to realising it's a completely fucking pointless and meaningless label that you're only attaching to stuff that you personally don't like.
Yeah, I think I saw them getting pissed off about, like
Baldur's Gate was another one.
No, the character creator options in, like, the Dragon Age preview.
But still wanting to play Dragon Age. It's Dragon Age is a great game.
And it's like, oh, but I'm so annoyed that, like, they've put options for, like, scarring in and, like, it's gone so woke. It's like, okay, just don't pay that option and move on.
Yeah. So
it's not for you. Move on. You can play as a man still.
Also, it's hilarious as well because he's like Dragon's Dogma as well. Like where he had a summon in that and everyone was just throwing it into the river the second they saw it. And it's like, when will companies learn of, like, hey, we're going to team up with one of the people online who's 90% responsible for all of the shit our voice actors get on Twitter? Let's put that person in our game. And anyway, I think the reason, like, Freddy vs. Jason, though, and, like, slasher villains don't really work, and it's something referenced in a Halloween movie. Like one of those Halloween sequels that aren't very good. They have a moment where they're talking about Michael Myers. And one of the characters has a very salient point. And it's like, well, have you heard about Michael Myers? The legendary killer. And one of them goes, what, some dude 40 years ago stabbed 3 people?
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck? There's a school shooting every other week in America. Which is a really interesting point of, yeah, these villains don't actually work in the modern context. Because, someone might... Imagine telling teenagers today of, like, well, there's a guy, look out, because you might randomly have someone come in and stab 3 people. It's like, oh, wow, that's great. That's better than what the reality we live in now. But they never do anything with that because they're still so hamstrung to the format of the original movies and trying to make Michael Myers scary. And same like Freddy vs. Jason. The movies released in the 80s, in the 70s, and they just refuse to let the characters evolve or the stories be transplanted into a modern day.
Like, Michael Myers is scary in the sense of, okay, but he did that 10 times.
Yeah.
Like, in that universe, the one, like, movie, like, 10 or some crap, so it's like...
Half of them are not canon, but yeah.
Okay, right.
Because...
But anyway, it's scarier to say, well, there's a guy that every 5 years turns back up and murders a group of people.
Yeah, and the thing as well that's really frustrating about as a fan of slasher movies and horror is that the latest Halloween trilogy had the kernel of a good idea. Where Michael Myers, they say it's the same Michael Myers from the first movie 40 years ago. And he's an old-ass man. He's an old fucking man. In the latest movie in the trilogy, he's in the sewers eating rats. Oh. And someone, like, comes across him and is like, They straight up say, you're pathetic. You're just an old man in a mask. And there was a hint that Michael Myers as evil was going to get transplanted into this new, younger man. And that maybe that the mantle, the legacy, will be passed on to this new character, Corey Cunningham. And maybe that's how they're going to keep making sequels, because now Michael Myers has been rejuvenated. The evil, because they always talk about, evil never dies, it just takes on a new form. That's the new form. But you can tell in the last 10 minutes of the movie, they got scared of that idea, and Michael Myers comes back and kills everybody.
Or, they focus grouped it or some shit, yeah.
And I remember, because I was reading reviews on it, and every review from a fan, quote-unquote, is bitching of, they made Michael Myers pathetic. And it's like, this is why we couldn't have anything interesting. Because the moment they try to do something interesting, fans bitch because it's not the same movie they've seen literally 13 times in a row already.
That's the thing, right? Is it stinks of some producer last minute came in and went, actually, no, we can't do that.
We can't do anything interesting because fans will bitch that it's not Michael Myers, even though it is Michael Myers. It's the story of his evil is so pervasive it corrupted somebody else, and they're going to carry on his legacy. But no, that's too complex an issue. Just make it Michael Myers, make him stab people with a butcher's knife.
It's the exact same thing, isn't it? Of okay, does it need to be Jamie Lee Curtis in every movie? Yeah, because we can't move on.
Yeah. Well, it's got to the
moment
where
we tried to move on from Jamie Lee Curtis, that's when the sales went down. So now the only answer is to have an excuse to bring her back every time.
It's to the point where there is a nurse in one of the movies, and Michael Myers steals her car. She isn't killed. As far as she knows, just Michael Myers was just this dude who dragged her out of a car and ran away. Okay. She's in the latest movie series, and they talk about how she was also damaged and scarred by Michael Myers because they're so desperate to get any link to those earlier movies rather than creating their own thing. It's similar to Freddy vs. Jason, where it says here, so Freddy vs. Jason is a 2003 American slasher film directed by Ronnie Yu, written by Damian Shannon and Mark Swift. It is a crossover between the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th franchises, being the 8th installment in the former and the 11th in the latter. So
this is... What, is this before or after Jason went to space?
It's before. And the reason Yeah. Actually, no, I think it's... I don't know the exact timeline, but I know the reason Jason goes to space is because technically... No, Jason went to space is before this.
Okay.
And the reason Jason goes to space is because while they were this movie was in development hell for a decade, they said that we don't want the canon of whatever the Freddy vs. Jason movie is going to be confused by the new Jason movie. So fuck it, put Jason 100 years into the future.
Okay. So no matter what they were doing with the
main
Freddy
series.
vs. Jason movie, the new movies coming out with Jason in them wouldn't affect that timeline, no matter what they were doing, yeah.
So the film joins the two in a shared universe and pits their respective antagonists, Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, against one another. Freddy is weakened and forgotten because the citizens of his hometown believe they have defeated him using medications that repress their dreams. That's how Freddy works. He comes and he gets you in your dreams, and the more powerful he becomes, or the more vivid those dreams are, the more people who believe in him, the more powerful he becomes, till eventually he can start killing you within your dreams.
Yeah, because he's a fairy, right?
Yeah.
He's like a fairy in Peter Pan. If no one believes in him, he dies.
Pretty much, yeah. And he works for the Dream People. And it mentions here that he uses Jason to stir up fear and grow his powers. So he convinces Jason to go from Crystal Lake to Springwood. Is it Springwood? Yeah, Springwood. And start killing.
I don't know.
And start killing people, and they assume that it's Freddy Krueger, and as a result, they start having nightmares about him, so he gets his powers back.
And did you just tell me that Freddy works for a fucking dream agency?
The Dream People. He works for demons. The plot line of both series is convoluted and a mess because every sequel contradicts the one prior to it. I think Halloween is the worst for this because Halloween has been rebooted 4 separate times.
Yeah.
Imagine Freddy.
I really wasn't aware that it was some fucking secret dream FBI agency behind Freddy Krueger's killings.
It's why when in regards to stuff like Michael Myers, when you have these people, it's disregarding the legacy of the series. It's The second movie in the Halloween franchise, John Carpenter has gone on record as saying, I wrote it in a weekend, half drunk off my ass, because I didn't give a shit. And that is the foundation of a 13-movie-long franchise, that when the newer movies are coming out, people are saying it's disregarding the legacy. John Carpenter didn't give a fuck. With the second movie.
Like, he disregarded its legacy immediately.
Yeah. And he acknowledges like how stupid the franchise is because they've rebooted it like 4 times. Something like Jason, where in the first movie, Jason Voorhees isn't the killer, it's his mum.
Yeah.
And then in the second movie, Jason comes back, which disregards the plot of the first one because the reason his mum goes crazy is because her son died. But it turns out he was alive the entire time, living in the woods next to where she grew up and lived.
I thought he was like magically resurrected or something.
And then he becomes magic.
Right, okay, yeah. Sure.
It's almost like just these franchises are very malleable. So Freddy versus Jason turns out to not be as easily controlled as Freddy initially thought, and the two supernatural mass murderers come into conflict. The film is the last film in each franchise before their respective reboots.
Yeah,
so they're both
that
rebooted
sounds
anyway.
about right. Is we got to the same happened with Aliens, right? Of like we got to this pinnacle point where we went so crazy with AVP, where how do you continue past how extreme it got? We just need to reboot it.
Yeah, he mentions here that although the it's not that great, they have had some continuation of this storyline. So, for example, the film marks Robert Englund's final portrayal as Freddy Krueger. There was a sequel and a crossover with the Evil Dead franchise, which was planned but scrapped and turned into a comic book series. Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. Because initially Ash was also supposed to... Yeah, and the reason that Ash wasn't in it is because it just, as it always is, an issue with rights. It's the same reason Ash was almost in Mortal Kombat, and then the rights fell through, so they couldn't put him in Mortal Kombat. Even though everybody involved, including Ash Williams, Bruce Campbell, was more than happy to do it, but the rights holders were like, no, because they heard that Ash might die.
Of course, but I'm curious, does that mean that Freddy Krueger's never been brought back after this then? Because wasn't the actor for Freddy Krueger like super weird and arseholey about anyone else portraying Freddy Krueger?
Not to the he wasn't arseholey about it, but a lot of people consider him to be the definitive portrayal of the character. And I think it was like Jackie Earle Haley played him in the reboot. So Rorschach.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
And the reboot sucked. Same for like Jason Voorhees, where they brought him back. Like he never really had a consistent act. I think Kane Hodder portrayed him for like 3 or 4 movies, but he's never had a consistent actor playing him, or even consistent like characterization.
Yeah, I did. For some reason, I thought like the actor for the original Freddy Krueger was one of those where he's like really weird about anybody else being in the role, but that might have just been something I've misheard.
It's more that everyone considers him to be Freddy, and it's the studios over the years have repeatedly tried to like edge him out or get someone else in. Like for example, I think it's Nightmare on Elm Street 2. They didn't want to cast Robert Englund, so they just got some random... Like, well, what did Robert Englund really bring to the role? And they cast some random stuntman to be Freddy, and just all the early test footage fucking sucked, so they brought him back. And it's that,
right,
and
maybe
over
that's
the years,
what I'm thinking is, not that he was an arsehole about it, but just that they couldn't replace him.
Yeah, and the studios keep trying to do so, and they don't realise that so much of what made Freddy Krueger an iconic character is Englund's portrayal. It's similar to... go.
I was going to say it's such a short-sighted kind of thing of... It's like turning around and being... Well, Terminator wasn't popular because of Arnold Schwarzenegger being the Terminator. It's like, no, he was.
And it's that thing of, like, with Jason, you can recast Jason all you want because he's a man in a mask. So Michael Myers. There's a great interview with the guy who originally played Michael Myers. And he talks about how when they did the reboot of... Halloween, which fucking sucked. He said he got approached by the actor they got to don the Michael Myers mask, and they asked him, "Oh, so what did he say to you?" So we came up to him, he'd read all these books on child psychology because Michael Myers had a rough childhood and all this nonsense, and he asked me like what went through my mind when I played Michael Myers all those years ago, and I went, that I'm going to stab Jamie Lee Curtis. Because weirdly enough, even though the franchise now has this mystique around it, at the time it was just a stupid movie where I was a man in a mask trying to stab Jamie Lee Curtis. And there was no, like, more thought given to my performance other than, you're big, you're scary, go.
go try stab this woman by walking slowly and randomly teleporting in scenes.
Yep, and it's to the point where, like, John Carpenter, like, Michael Myers didn't even have a name in the credits of the original movie. He's credited simply as The Shape, and that was his idea.
Oh, wow.
Michael Myers, he's a guy, but he's just a force of pure evil with no motivations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he thought, like, The Shape of just, the thing you see out the corner of your eye sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
And you think, was that a person? That's what Michael Myers was inspired by. The idea that that thing you saw at the corner of your eye might be a person trying to kill you.
Oh, man, that might have to be a thing that we cover at some point, is one of the greatest ideas that got absolutely just annihilated in Doctor Who of the Silence. And the Silence were like a alien species, I believe, or something along those lines, where it was just, you see them, but the moment you stop looking at them, you forget you've ever met them.
Ah, okay, that's an interesting idea.
So that whole idea of, like, I thought I saw something, and it's like taking that idea, and it's like, you did. You think you saw something because you just had an encounter with the Silence, but then the moment you stop looking at them, you've forgotten the encounter.
And yeah, that's similar to what the idea of Michael Myers is inspired by. Of, like, that's why he's referred to as The Shape.
Mm-hmm.
Of just, he's just this, like, amorphous, murderous blob with no goals, motivations, or reasoning behind what they do. Until the sequels, where they say he's Laurie Allen, Jamie Lee Curtis's sister. Oh, he's his sister, and then they walk that back in a later sequel, and then they brought it back in another sequel. It's like, yeah.
And that's the exact same thing that happened with that Silence race of, like, more that they brought in, same with the Angels, the more they bring them back.
The more they bring it back, the worse it gets. It's a good idea.
Into the story, it's like, it was the one good idea that now you've ground into the fucking dust.
And that's it. Same thing with Michael Myers. Of the whole reason he's a scary villain is because he has no motivation. There's no rhyme or reason why he kills people. But you don't. And there's a bit where, like, Dr. Loomis is talking about Michael Myers, like, he's just pure evil. We don't know why he does what he does, and and this thing, some films have him arrested. Like, we have him in psychiatric care. He's been there for 2 decades. He's never said a word. No one's ever got him to say a word. No one's ever got him to, like, talk to him. He's never expressed any emotion or explained why he did what he did. That's why he's scary. I remember it's like Rob Zombie did, like, a reboot of the movie, and the literal first thing he did is, when he did interviews, well, people need to know why Michael Myers does what he does. It's like, you don't understand why this franchise is popular.
Rob Zombie did a reboot.
Oh, he's done them all. He did the reboot of that, and I think he did the reboot of Friday the 13th, where he also tried to explain what Jason Voorhees' motivation is.
And it's like, ultimately, the less you know about these evil characters, the more threatening and scary they are.
There's one thing I know about villains is it's the more you know about them, the scarier they get. Because it's not like people are scared of the unknown.
Yeah, it reminds me of the movie. Is it Insidious?
Oh, where they show you the Darth Maul monster.
The weird red demon monster thing.
Yep, and the second you see it in full makeup, you're just not scared of it anymore.
Yeah, the first half of the movie is, like, a really good build-up, and then it's like, oh, that wasn't scary at all.
No, it's just Darth Maul.
Yeah, it's just shit Darth Maul who's not scary in any way, and it just turns into a joke of a film.
It's like, why, the ending to the original Halloween is so effective, because they go downstairs. I shot Michael Myers. I shot him. He's dead. His body's gone. And the end of the film is this amazing just montage, and it's just shots of an empty house. With, like, there's a dark corner. Here's a garden with, like, you can't quite see to the end of it. And it's like, what a amazing way to end the film for people who are watching it at home on video of Michael Myers could be in any of these locations or none of them. You don't know where he is.
That literally, again, reminds me of the Angels in Doctor Who.
Oh, it's the montage of all the different statues, right?
It ends perfectly where they trap, the TARDIS goes away, they trap, like, the 4, I think, angels all looking at each other so they can't escape.
Yep.
And then it's like, just goes to a montage with a voiceover talking about they're always there, they're always watching, but, like, you never know where they are, or, you can't stop them because they're just everywhere, and it just goes around different shots of statues in the country.
Yeah, and it's like, the
They're
Statue of
fucking
Liberty.
everywhere.
So it's an angel, but it's in New York, so there's always someone looking at it. But if there's ever a situation where, just for a moment, there isn't one set of eyes watching the Statue of Liberty, it'll come and get you. And I think in a sequel episode, the Statue of Liberty becomes a weeping angel, right?
Probably,
And it's fucking terrible.
Yeah.
That's probably all the sequels. And that's why it's always, as a fan of this kind of series, both of these series, all of these series, every time they reboot one or do a sequel, and other fans will moan about it disregarding the legacy of the original. It's like the fact they made a sequel is disregarding the legacy of the original. Can't we just, as I said, the Halloween one, where the most interesting thing the franchise has done in 30 years was undone because fans bitched that it's not technically Michael Myers.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, so influenced by a fan desire for a crossover film with a fight between Freddy and Jason, New Line Cinema and Paramount Pictures, the rights holders to both franchises, tried to make a Freddy vs. Jason movie in 1987.
Oh, so that was what, like 17 years production or something?
It came out in 2003, yeah, so a good
like
number
16,
of years,
yeah.
almost 2 decades. And Lucas, would you like to hazard a guess at one of the reasons why this movie was such a ball ache to get made? It's the same reason all these movies
right
are.
now. I'm imagining right now is the same thing that I've heard on the Fast and Furious sets, where it's like, oh, well, every time the Rock gets hit, he needs to land a punch on Vin Diesel.
Yep.
And vice versa. And because neither of the two characters could be portrayed as scarier or more powerful than the other, it was just a constant back and forth into oblivion.
Yep. And it's the same thing for the Freddy vs. Jason movies, where every version of the scripts that resulted in a definitive winner to the fight was poo-pooed by the rights holder of the character who lost.
It's kind of similar with the... I haven't seen it, but there's like the Godzilla versus Kong
Same
movie,
same
and
issue.
Batman versus Superman.
Same issue. Even though it's the same rights holder, but they didn't want to piss off fans of either character.
And it's just... Every single one of these it's got to be... Well, we'll fight for a little while, but then a third thing comes along, and we've got to deal with that together.
And we have to team up, so there's never a definitive winner to the fight, because that way the rights holders to both are happy. And there's like just a bunch of stuff here about the various people involved with each franchise, either agreeing with or disagreeing with the idea of a fight between them being good. And it's just, it says here that one of the people involved, like Sean S. Cunningham, who wanted to reacquire the rights to Friday the 13th and begin working with New Line on a Freddy vs. Jason, he wanted to license the other characters so they could control the crossover film. So that was like his idea of, rather than two studios working together, if we license the rights to the character, we can just write the film and not worry about having them looking over our shoulder every time Freddy does the wrong thing. We can just make them fight like the fans want.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. And just for years, it got like thrown back and forth, and it eventually led to Cunningham being so frustrated, he created Jason X in an attempt to keep the series alive, because by that point, they'd been in production for so long, people had forgotten about Freddy and Jason. So he made Jason X so to put Jason back into the zeitgeist.
Because, I think of these films as like, I don't know exactly when these franchises really kicked off, but in my brain, they are from before my time, so like 70s, 80s kind of vibes.
Yep.
And if this is coming out in 2003, it's like people who are at this point, the new demographic for that movie don't even fucking know who these characters are or have a reason to give a damn.
And Jason X is like, it's such a joke of a film. It's like Jason Goes to Space. And one thing I do appreciate, though, is that Jason is never taken... The film is such a joke. It's fucking terrible. But Jason is always portrayed as being very scary. So Jason is still a threat. It's just that he's a threat on the set of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah. I don't know much about their power sets, but...
Jason would win. He's literally unkillable.
I was going to say, because I don't know much about them, that Jason... I don't know whether he sleeps or not, but he seems like just a dude with some weapons.
It depends on like which canon you're going to go by. Jason cannot die. Whereas Freddy definitively can die, because if you forget about him, he will die. Whereas Jason, when he's forgotten about, just still roams around Crystal Lake. Mm-hmm. Whereas like Freddy's powers very definitively have a limit.
Freddy's powers on, just in concept, seem way more scary and powerful than Jason's.
Of course, yes, but Jason is just unstoppable. Like, Freddy can very explicitly be stopped if you either forget about him or you realise you're not scared of him.
Or if you just take enough machetes to his face.
Yeah, well, that's one of the great bits of... and it's interesting as well, because some aspects of the film are quite interesting, of Freddy's scared of fire, Jason's scared of water. Because Jason drowned, Freddy was burned alive. That's interesting. That's an interesting twist. That's like to acknowledge that, they have contradictory fears. Like, the one thing Jason's scared of is the one thing that Freddy's not bothered by. Likewise, Jason isn't scared of fire, but Freddy is. That's interesting, right?
Yeah. And what you're telling me is that at the end of the movie, they have to come together to defeat the elements instead of each other.
They do have a great bit, because when Jason's trying to fight Freddy in the dream world, Freddy kicks the fuck out of him. And, like, he just, well, you're in my world now, I control it. So he just makes, like, the sky open up. They're in, like, a factory, and it starts bleeding water. And Jason's scared of it. But then, when they drag Freddy, and I think the people in the film realise, well, Jason just cares about Crystal Lake. So what they do is they put Jason to sleep with, like, 1 billion, like, cc's of chloroform directly into his eyeballs. And they're, like, driving him to Crystal Lake. And they have him, like, in the back of the van, dying. Because he's dreaming, and just Freddy's kicking the fuck out of him in his dreams, but he can't die. And they take him all the way to Crystal Lake, and they just wake Jason up, and Jason drags Freddy out into, like, the real world. And the first time Freddy tries hitting Jason in the real world is so funny, because Jason just doesn't give a fuck. And he picks Freddy up, turns him sideways, and runs through 14 glass windows.
So, like, is there a third force in this? Like, it's the like,
teenagers.
Other characters.
It's the teenagers realise Jason, as bad as he is, at least he won't kill you as long as you don't go to Crystal Lake. Freddy just revels in mayhem.
So there is a group of teenagers in this movie that are, like, being harassed by presumably both of them.
Jason
right?
working for and they realise that we can weaponise Jason against Freddy, because Jason ultimately doesn't give a fuck. He just wants to be left alone. So if we take him back to his Crystal Lake, wake him up and drag Freddy into the real world, he's probably going to be so pissed off with Freddy he won't bother with us, which is what he does. But then, end of the film is they're both still alive, because of course they are.
Yeah.
He mentions that, New Line Cinema spent about $6 million on script development alone from several different writers. Louis Abernathy, the writer of Deep Star 6 and House 4, was the first screenwriter attached to the film. Abernathy sought to direct his script entitled Nightmare 13, Freddy Meets Jason, but his limited directing experience prohibited him from doing so. David J. Shaw was given an offer to write the script because he just so happened to walk by DeLuca's office one day, and that's DeLuca's one of the people in charge on the execs. So literally, he just walked by the office like, "Do you want to direct Freddy versus Jason?"
You,
literally.
Do you want to do this?
In 1994, DeLuca passed on the draft and turned to Brannon Braga and Ronald D. Moore, who wrote Jason vs. Freddy, which had a more adult tone. The writing duo would depart and were replaced by Peter Briggs, who impressed the studio with his previous crossover attempt, Alien vs. Predator.
And I mean, people like AVP in a fun, schlocky way, right?
Exactly, yeah, and that's what this film could be, because ultimately Freddy and Jason are schlocky characters from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Briggs's draft saw numerous returning characters across several films. By 1996, Demon Knight scribes Cyrus Voris and Ethan Rife were commissioned by Cunningham to write another new script under the title Freddy vs. Jason, Millennium Massacre, with Rob Bottin. And Rob Bottin is a name that anyone who's a fan of horror will recognise. He's the guy who did the makeup work on The Thing.
Oh, yes.
Widely regarded as a genius in his industry. And basically, after working on The Thing, just disappeared from Hollywood altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the few things that he would have been involved with. And now I just think of how good the effects would have been. New Line Cinema had previously offered the chance to direct the film to Guillermo del Toro and Peter Jackson. And if anyone's thinking, wait, Peter Jackson, the Lord of the Rings guy, before he did Lord of the Rings, he did a bunch of slasher horror movies. That's how he worked for New Line. New Line they cut their teeth doing horror movies like Freddy Krueger movies. And they bought the rights to Lord of the Rings because it was just cheap. And they got Peter Jackson to do it because he was similarly cheap.
It's so wild, right?
It's more so when you look at Peter Jackson's early movies. and they're just like splatter movies with lots of blood and violence. That was a bit in it where, I forget which name, I think it's Brain Dead, where a guy, it's known as the bloodiest movie ever made because a character picks up a lawnmower and runs through a crowd of zombies.
No.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Bettine and his treatment were retained despite clashing with the studio over the budget. Screenwriting duo Jonathan Abel and Glenn Berger, known for their work on King of the Hill, was selected by the director to write a new script.
Yeah, horror writing
King of the Hill.
King of the Hill.
What
right?
a wild production, right? Bettine initially considered revising the script himself, but ultimately left the film and Hollywood altogether. In 1999, Mark Verdienen entered the project and proposed releasing the film with 2 different endings, one with Freddy winning and one with Jason winning.
I mean, that'd be kind of fun, though, wouldn't it? If, like, we talk about like movies having these ideas, and I know like Clue did it back in the day.
Yep.
Of like you go to the cinema and you don't know which version of the ending you're gonna get. That would be a fun way to do it. Is like some people come out going, "Oh man, like it's so good when Freddy wins at the end, right?" And then other people
Jason
get to see, "No, Jason won."
And start the arguments. Yep. Jason ex-writer Todd Farmer also wrote a treatment for the film. Newcomers Mark Swift and Damian Shannon were also hired after delivering a pitch to DeLuca that he was happy with in March of 2002. Goyer returned to the project once again in an effort to trim every ounce of fat from Swift and Shannon's 120-page script. Wes Craven, Guillermo del Toro, and Ronnie Yu all declined the opportunity to direct this version of the film. Rob Zombie turned down the film in favour to helm House of a Thousand Corpses, and then we had up-and-coming director and filmmaker Juan Balguero, who campaigned to direct the film. Ronnie Yu would ultimately come back and agree to sign on and direct the film in 2002 after being given an, and I quote, enormous amount of creative freedom.
God.
So just what a fucking mess, right?
The amount of different
writers,
fingers
directors,
that have been like
the amount of fingers in that pie.
Yeah.
And do you know that as well? I've always heard that if you've got too many cooks in the kitchen, it normally results in good stuff happening.
Yeah. That's how you make the best food, is just get 20 cooks around a pot.
Yep, according to Swift and Shannon, several endings were considered for the film. One involving a surprise appearance from Pinhead of the Hellraiser franchise, which we've not mentioned, but I'm a big fan of Pinhead. And when we talked about Robert Englund earlier, I feel much worse for Doug Bradley. And he's the guy who originally portrayed Pinhead. Because that guy got fucked by that franchise.
Oh, really?
Because not only is he considered to be the best part of the entire franchise, but because he was constantly in really painful, awkward makeup, no one knew who he was. And he talks about how I was the only person who was in like multiple movies. And I'd turn up to the screenings and people would ask who I was. And it's like, I'm Pinhead. He worked on so many of the movies that between productions, they replaced the entire cast. So he'd sit down in the makeup chair and the makeup artist would ask him, so how do we put the Pinhead makeup on? And he'd do it himself. Because he knew how to do it better than the makeup artist, because he's the only one who worked on a previous Hellraiser movie.
I mean, obviously someone that's not necessarily shafted by that or anything, but just it kind of reminds me, I've got to imagine that Doug Jones has never been seen as himself on a camera before.
Probably not.
Every movie he's always just make-upped up to fuck, right?
Well, that's one of the things that he likes. And one thing that I will give big props to is, because Joe is speaking of recasting a character, Jackie Earle Haley he did not do a good job as Freddy. He played it too sinister, whereas Freddy always has a playfulness to it. And the whole reason Freddy's scary is that he revels in murder. And he revels in killing people in ironic, terrifying ways. He will find out what your fear is and exploit it purely for his own amusement.
Right.
Jason, not so much to talk about his portrayal there. He's just a force of nature. And a lot of people who play him they're not known for their acting skills, but they're known for their physicality. A lot of stuntmen, a lot of former wrestlers like Kane Hodder, I think nearly 7 feet tall. Big, huge dudes. That's what's important to that character. Pinhead is a really interesting slasher villain because it's not his physicality, it's not his cruelty, because the Cenobites aren't cruel. In fact, they think they're giving people a gift. It's what makes Pinhead scary is how just erudite he is, just how charming he is, despite the fact he's a terrifying monster man with a face full of nails.
I don't know what the word erudite means.
Just very well spoken.
Oh, okay.
And just that's the thing, like, he comes in, and you think, oh my god, it's this monster, he's going to kill me. And he's like, you called, we came. And that's what makes him scary, of that he understands fully what he's doing. And when he, like, sentences you to, like, 1,000 years of unthinkable torture, he doesn't think of it as torture, because to the Cenobites, torture is a gift. Because they come from, like, a dimension where pain and pleasure are so intertwined, they're the same thing. And they talk about how we're going to give you the gift of pain. Because they see torture as the ultimate in, like, forbidden expression. And that takes a really specific actor to get that across. Like, you need, like, a certain amount of gravitas and charisma. And there's been a couple of people who tried to play Pinhead. All have been terrible. But I will give a shout out to Jamie Clayton. And that's who plays Pinhead in the latest Hellraiser movie.
Okay.
And one of the interesting things about the way Jamie Clayton portrayed the character is that they are a trans woman. And one of the things about Pinhead is because they exist, the Cenobites exist in this world beyond. Like, they even talk about how, like, pain and pleasure, torture and ecstasy, that's such a human way of looking at things.
Like, they don't really see things in such a binary manner.
Yes, and one of the interesting things about Clayton is there's some great behind-the-scenes interviews with them and the direction and stuff. Like, it's interesting to have a trans woman play this character, because they brought, unlike everyone else who tried to copy what Doug Bradley did, they brought their own spin on it.
Okay, yeah.
And it's just that thing of, like, bringing a new perspective to a character, rather than trying to copy what someone did before.
And that's something that's interesting, right? It's like, we talk about the fact that, the person who followed on from Michael Myers of, like, trying to bring, like, the child psychology element in, and the original Michael Myers was just, I want to stab Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yep.
He's still interesting. You don't necessarily have to just copy the last actor's portrayal.
It's a new fact.
And it is interesting to...
Copying them.
It's one of those of, you either want someone who's going to just stray down the middle and just do what the last person did, or you want something that's going to
completely different,
go a completely different route and take a swing, right?
Yeah, and that's what they talk about when it was coming to casting Pinhead. It's like, there's no one that's ever going to be able to copy what Doug Bradley did. He's inimitable, and everyone who's tried has failed, and the films have been widely and rightfully lambasted as just being poor imitations of a better product. That's why we went completely different with the casting for this one. We want to explore more the idea of the Cenobites being these creatures from beyond, from an alternate dimension. And we want to bring that dimension to the character. And that's something Jamie Clayton was able to do.
Like, I don't know much about Hellraiser or any of these, like, slasher horror franchises and stuff. I'm not a horror person, but it sounds to me that villains like Freddy Krueger and Pinhead have way more characterization, whereas you get the other people like Jason or Michael, where they are just a big thing that's going to go stab you. Yeah.
And I will recommend, like, the new Hellraiser movie, and as I said, some great behind-the-scenes stuff with interviewing about the casting and choice of Jamie Clayton to play Pinhead. And I think they did a really good job, because they just brought an entirely new lived experience to playing the character, and as a result, the character is recognisable as Pinhead, but an altogether different enough portrayal where it stands on its own, which I think is the best way to do that.
It's pretty hard to not recognise Pinhead, right?
Like, technically they're not Pinhead, they are the Priest, which is Pinhead's real name. He's called Pinhead, but he's technically the Priest. He's never given the moniker Pinhead in anything official. Written by, it's Clive Barker, I believe, wrote the original books that Pinhead appears in.
Similar to when we found out that Mr. X has never been named Mr. X in the canon of Resident Evil.
Just the name, right? We have here casting. So in 1999, Robert Englund officially signed on to the film, making his 8th appearance as the character of Freddy Krueger. Not much to say there, but then we have casting Jason. New Line, thinking that Freddy vs. Jason needed a fresh start, chose a different actor to play Jason. Cunningham disagreed with their decision, believing that Kane Hodder, who had played Jason in the previous 4 films, was the best choice for the role. Although Hodder received a script for Freddy vs. Jason and met with the director and New Line executives, Yu and Matthew Barry felt the role should be recast to fit Yu's image of Jason. Hodder said that New Line did not give him a reason for the recasting. However, according to Yu, he wanted a taller, slower, and more deliberate Jason. The role went to Ken Kersinger, a Canadian stuntman who'd worked on Jason Takes Manhattan. We're going to go on a new take on the character. Here's a guy who played him before.
And that's such a weird thing. Well, we want to bring in new actors because we want to take this in a new direction. Oh, did you get to play Freddy? Oh, the guy who's played him 8 times.
Yeah. Well, he'd only played him in like...
Freddy. No, yeah, Freddy. Yeah, Freddy. Yeah, not Jason.
Freddy was the same guy, but they wanted a different Jason. The reason why Ken Kersinger is believed to have been cast is that he's simply taller than Hodder. Hodder stands at 6'3", whereas Kersinger was 6'5", which would make for better visual comparison. And the thing is, 2 inches...
2 inches.
In film, Tom Cruise is 5'7", and he stands next to 6'3" Ving Rhames. And they look the same height. You can easily make up for that. You could make Jason look way taller, because he's already like nearly half a foot taller than, it says here, Robert Englund is 5'9".
Right, yeah.
So they could have very easily, like, you know, turned that half foot into a foot or 2 feet with creative camera work.
I get it if it was a case of like, oh, well, we brought in like the Big Show instead, and he's an extra 100 pounds and he's an extra half a foot taller. But what is it? Oh, we recast this guy because we needed 2 inches.
And also, as well, it really sounds like Kane Hodder, who played the character a few times before, probably would have cost more money. Whereas Ken Kersinger was a stuntman who his previous roles in the franchise have been doubling for Hodder.
Yeah.
And it really sounds like, well, this guy's played the character before, and he's not as well known. He's only been he's been an extra and a stand-in for a stuntman. We could probably get him for a bit cheaper. Robert Englund, we can't recast Robert Englund. Jason, any fucker can wear that mask.
Mm-hmm. Again, it's that different element, right? Of, as I was saying, just Freddy is a character that has character, whereas Jason seemingly is just, I'm going to get you with my machete.
Yeah. And it's to the point where they said that in reshoots, and they just got another guy in called Douglas Tate. So they even, like, you know, got a stand-in for the stand-in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I look at it as well, like, I'm the same height as Kane Hodder. I could be Jason.
I'm sorry, Karl. I don't think you hold the gravitas to be Jason Voorhees.
Well, I'm pretty tall. Give me a big pair of boots.
No, I mean, like, I just don't think of you as, like, a big, scary, intimidating murderer.
And that's the thing, is I've got a friend who, we've both got a friend who's 6'5", and I'll admit, when we stand next to each other, he's way more intimidating. That's the thing.
That's also because he's a foot wider than you.
Yeah, I think 6'5", I always say my height is the height where I'm tall, but it's not commented on. Whereas I think 6'5" is tall enough where it's noticeable. And people do comment on it.
At the same time, like, the difference between you and our mutual friend
is about
like
100
he's
pounds
way
of
more
muscle.
built than you.
And I reckon that's probably what... But the thing is, Kane Hodder's a big fucking dude. He was jacked as all balls and still is to this day. But just the fact is, like, I could be Jason.
A guy that's 6'3" and really jacked is probably not that different from a guy who's 6'5" and really jacked. I think it's the combination of height and stature.
Yes. And then as well as always, like, the makeup, like, you make him wear a big pair of boots, like, you put some, like, you know, put some lifts in those heels, give you another 2-3 inches, give him, like, the costume as well, which adds some, like, extra bulk, the mask.
That's what I was going to say, is, like, if they wanted Kane Hodder a little bit taller, just put some lifts in his fucking shoes. Like, you could have got him that much taller just by altering his shoes.
Like I said, it really feels like just, we've already spent, like, they spent $6 million just getting the script right. It really sounds like it was getting to be too expensive. Because the thing about horror movies is, generally they're quite cheap.
That's why people like horror movies, or producers and
love horror movies.
Executives love making horror movies because they're cheap as fuck normally.
And usually by definition, you're never going to put a big actor in a horror movie, because if you put a big actor in a horror movie, you know they're not going to die. And in this film, the biggest actor in it was the guy playing Freddy.
Like, you're telling me that you don't think Jamie Lee Curtis is in danger during Halloween?
Well, she was at the time. She was a relatively new actress at the time.
Oh, no, I mean when she's in, like, the 17th Halloween film.
Yeah, even though she's, like, you know, Hollywood royalty. But he does mention in regards to cast, who's in this movie? Kelly Rowland, the singer and winner of American... It's like, is she the winner of American Idol? No, member of Destiny's Child.
Yeah, when you said Kelly Rowland, I did think singer, but I was like, it must be a different person that I'm not thinking of. Okay, yeah. Destiny's Child, that's not one of the ones that's, like, been 4 different groups, right?
It might be. But it's like, that's the best known actor on the thing besides Robert Englund.
Because there's the good old Sugar Babes of, like, how many different Sugar Babes are the Sugar Babes?
There are so many babes of sugar. But yeah, that's Freddy vs. Jason. What a fascinating film. Just because that sounds like such a nightmare of just juggling the egos of two separate studios.
And as I say, just even off the top of my head, I could think of a couple where it's just, here's another movie where the entire premise was like Godzilla vs. Kong, Batman vs. Superman, where it just naturally has to be awful. Like, I'm sure it would be a way better movie if they could just commit to, like, Batman just stabbed Superman.
Yeah, he just kicked the fuck out of him. But you couldn't have that because you don't want to upset fans. Same Godzilla vs. Kong. And the thing as well, as a fan of both characters, I would be a little bit upset if, like, Godzilla's going to win in any fight between Godzilla and Kong. Godzilla is unkillable. I'd be a bit upset if Godzilla killed King Kong, but I would not be as upset as the people online would be. And you know what I'm talking about when I say this, and you know that the studios know that's the case and just don't want to deal with it, and I can respect them for that.
I can't. I think commit. If you're going to make a movie where the premise is versus, give us a fucking winner.
It's like, and I can understand, like I said, the Michael Myers thing of, I was so interested in that film right up to the last second, and I was pissed off, and I realised, this isn't for me. This is for the weirdos who just, they think that the franchise is this one character. And that's who the movie's for. It's not for me.
Again, like, I don't know how it goes with Alien versus Predator, but that seems like just a fun time of, like...
Well, yeah, Alien versus Predator is good. Because the alien doesn't lose, but individual aliens can. And Alien vs. Predator is actually really interesting, because a bunch of no-name bitch-ass predators get, like, immediately slaughtered by the aliens. Second one. But then a bunch of the aliens also get killed. So that film actually works, because there's not a definitive winner.
There's not an alien and one predator, right? It's like
multiple aliens versus multiple predators.
Many aliens and many predators, so they can just go fucking ham on each other.
And they do have, like, a bit at the end where the predator is fighting the alien queen. And of course the alien queen fucks up an individual predator. But the individual predator gets some good hits in.
Yeah.
And I do love how they portray the aliens in that. I'm like, well, how is an individual alien going to fight one predator? And it's like, well, they hide. They take advantage of their natural stealthiness. And
then the predator just brings out, like, 18 different types of vision on their eyes. And it's like, I can fucking see you, mate.
And then in the second one,
you hiding in the corner.
Which is a terrible film. It might be the worst shot film I've ever seen. And it's because the person who directed it was a special effects guy, not a camera director. And it's literally the darkest film I've ever seen. Like, to the point where the people reviewing the film thought they got a bad version. They thought, well, I thought there was a problem with the camera or the projector in the studio.
Projector.
And it turns out, no, the film's just that dark. So the guy directing it didn't know what lighting was.
And that's the thing, right?
But it is interesting because they have one super predator who kicks the fuck out like 45 aliens. And they were happy with that.
And that's cool. Yeah. But yeah, this is the thing is, it doesn't matter how talented you are at special effects, those skills don't necessarily translate over to becoming a cinematographer or a director, right?
If anyone wants to know what I'm talking about, just go look up any fight scene from Alien vs. Predator Requiem. You literally cannot see what's going on.
Is it worse than the Battle of the Bastards?
It's worse.
No, not the Battle of the Bastards, the Battle of...
Winterfell.
The Winterfell, yeah, that's the one. Where
it's worse because it's the entire film.
Yeah, because that was just that one episode where it was like, A, super dark, B, being streamed, and just everything got annihilated into oblivion. Just what a mess that was.
But it's like I say, it's terrible because you'd be able to see what was going on, it'd be a fun B-movie romp where a bunch of asshole teenage characters you don't like get murked by predators and aliens at the same time. But you literally can't see what's going on because it's just in the dark the entire time. And it has the coolest predator, Wolf, who's just like, oh, he's the mega predator. Who's like, okay, Earth's gone afoot. We need to bring in like the cleaner.
Yeah.
And he's like the super mega ultimate predator who's killed like 1 billion aliens. Like, fuck's sake, I'll go to Earth and take care of this. And he just rocks up on his own and takes out like 500 aliens. Or I guess, because I don't know how many he killed, because I can't fucking see him.
And that is one where, that makes more sense, because it's not necessarily that you've got two characters that can't die. It's just No, you've got two armies of characters that can die a lot.
And one of the things that I thought would be interesting about Freddy versus Jason, I thought it'd been great if they killed each other but kept doing it. Like, I'm imagining where Jason cuts Freddy's head off and he just walks through a door. And do you like the Burly Brawl? I was hoping it'd be like the Burly Brawl where it's just 1,000 Freddy Kruegers.
That's one way you could do it, right? It's just Freddy goes into a dream and summons 1,000 Freddys against one Jason, and then Jason's tearing through an army of Freddys.
And they both get some good hits in, but you can feel 100%, like you mentioned, the Fast and Furious thing, you can feel the people in the back, the bean counters in the back end, counting how many hits each character gives and takes, because they don't want their cash cow to come across as too weak. Even though realistically, the unkillable monster Jason would win in the end. Same like Godzilla versus Kong. Like Godzilla, there's no world where Godzilla is beaten by King Kong. I don't care how.
Even with a little robot fist, it's like, nope, not happening.
There's no world where.
One atomic blast. It's just, there's no way that, even with like multiple shenanigans to power up Kong, he's not fighting Godzilla.
No one's beating Godzilla. Like King Ghidorah's a fucking alien from outer space and he lost.
Like, even Mecha Godzilla can't beat Godzilla. Yeah.
It's, and that's why it's that thing of like, they do have to power scale the characters both ways. They have to make one character stronger, one character weaker, and they're never going to let one character win. Even though I remember in the lead up to Godzilla vs. Kong, they were like, no, there'll be a definitive winner to the fight, and I saw them like, fuck, there's going to be.
The real question is, though, who wins, Godzilla or Batman with prep time?
It's always the most hilarious. Because that's the thing as well, like, Batman can't lose, because Batman fans will not let Batman lose.
No, you see it, even to the point where the comic book writers are such a hard-on for Batman that he can't lose in the comics.
Which is why one of my favourite death battles is Batman versus Spider-Man. All the salty Batman fans who are mad that he lost. It's like, well, this is what happens when Batman goes into a universe where he doesn't have a writer explicitly writing a bullshit reason for him to win. This is what happens if you take a guy with his exact power set, his abilities, and make him fight someone else. That's how it'd realistically go down.
Yeah. When you have somebody with superpowers against somebody that's just a guy, and bear in mind, Spider-Man doesn't have just superpowers. He has, some of the most broken, stupid ones, like Spidey sense.
And that's the same thing. It's like, Spider-Man in his own world is constantly downplayed of how strong he is. And that's why it's fascinating to see the, again, salty Batman, but he'd win doing this bullshit. It's like, no, it's not his universe.
It's like, bear in mind, Spider-Man's average day is taking on the Sinister Six, and it's a random assortment of 6 different supervillains that Spider-Man dominates on the regular.
Well, he fights Superman.
At once.
He beats Superman because the writers wanted to beat Superman. That's why Death Battle is so fascinating. It's like, okay, we're going to remove them from the context of their universe, where that's why the whole reason we ignore their, if a character has a stance against killing, we remove that. And just say, okay, we're just going to take a character with that exact power set and pit him against this one in a theoretical smash the action figures together. And we're not going to allow the biases that would exist in their native universes to come into play. Only their skills, powers, and abilities. And in that case, it's like if you did that with Batman, and if you did that with Batman and Spider-Man, Spider-Man wins. You did it with Freddy and Jason, Jason is winning every time. Because his whole power is that he literally can't die.
Fair, right.
Like, he went to hell and then came back. There's a bit where he dies and someone is doing an autopsy and they eat his heart because of magic bullshit, and then a fully formed adult Jason still wearing his hockey mask leaps out of their stomach.
What?
Well, he needed to get a new body. There's a bit where he dies and but Freddy also can't die because the dream people won't let him, where he's dead, and then a dog pisses on his grave and it brings him back to life. Well, that might be Jason, I forget which, but either way. And that's the thing, I mean, in their own universes, there's always going to be bullshit reasons to bring him back.
Can we do Jason versus Kratos, of which one can keep coming back from hell the most?
I think Kratos would just win through pure strength. Even if he couldn't kill Jason, to Kratos, Jason would be like Joe, a level 1 Draugr.
Yeah, right. The power level that Jason actually shows is I can throw someone really far. Kratos can flip infinity.
Yeah. So you can't kill Jason, but Jason can't hurt Kratos.
It'd just be Kratos, just like, oh man, you're back again.
Like Jason with the equivalent.
Really?
Do you know that one Draugr who just you keep killing in Ragnarok that keeps coming back? Because it's so mad.
Just keeps respawning.
It'd be that one, yeah.
God, yeah.
That's the thing. That's why I love power scaling, and that's why death battles are interesting. Like I said, the Batman one always cracks me up. Well, Batman would figure it out in his own comic book. He would, yeah. But if you just said we're going to take Batman, and drop him into a universe where he doesn't have bullshit logic that writers can pull out their ass, and you just make him fist fight this Spider-Man, he's fucked.
It's like, oh, well, what's Batman's greatest strength? Oh, fear and hiding in the shadows. It's like, okay, Spidey sense can just literally see where Batman is.
Yeah. So no, but he beats Superman, yes, when the writers give him a reason for beating Superman.
And when he knows his weakness and when he's prepped for that weakness. Whereas when it's just, they're dropped into a rooftop and Batman's got to try and beat the shit out of this guy that's untouchable by human hands.
Yeah, he's untouchable by Superman. Like, superheroes can't hit Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
There's that one comic where the X-Men go to Spider-Man's house and he beats them all and says, go away. And the X-Men are like, I didn't know Spider-Man was this tough. It's like, you've never actually tried fighting Spider-Man. He's always on our side.
Yeah.
I think it's like Storm tries to cast a lightning bolt on him and he just knows where the lightning bolt's going to be and kicks her out the sky. He's like, how is he faster than lightning? It's like, he don't have to be faster than lightning. He's got to be faster than you.
Well, that's the thing is, it's not that he's faster than lightning, it's that Spidey sense tells him that lightning is coming and get the fuck out the way.
I think that's the line. She's like, there's no way a spider can't outrun lightning. So I was like, I don't outrun lightning, I'm outrunning you.
Yeah.
And there's a limit to how fast you can move.
Man,
it's great.
So funny.
But yeah. And every time he mentions someone's like, no, Batman would win now. It's like, oh god, get in his own comics, because that's the point.
It's like, yes, if DC writers were writing the fight of Batman versus Spider-Man, the writers would figure out a way to make Batman win, yes. Because that's all they do in DC is figure out how Batman can win.
But if they were just going to fight each other and you only went on what their physical capabilities are, you're not beating a guy who fought a dinosaur once.
Realistically, at this point, Batman's powers and abilities should have an extra addendum of Batman is actually superpowered. He's got the superpower to break the fourth wall and make the writers always make him win.
When I play Revengeance on a Friday, something I pointed out recently, and people in the chat no, that's not true. Is that Senator Armstrong could beat up the Hulk? No, he couldn't. It's Senator Armstrong lifts up Metal Gear Excelsius, or he fights Raiden who can do that. Metal Gear Excelsius weighs 1,000 tons. Base form Hulk can only lift 100 tons. Senator Armstrong can't be cut by Raiden's sword. The Hulk can be cut by Wolverine's claws. And Wolverine's claws are weaker than Raiden's sword.
And then, yeah, it's that thing of, does Armstrong have anything to kill the Hulk, though?
Well, he could just punch him. He's stronger than the Hulk.
Yeah, but then he could
he'd
punch
get angrier,
him,
right? Yeah.
Which he'd get angrier, and then, inevitably, Hulk gets pissed off to a point where he becomes stronger.
But that's that fascinating thing. If you actually look at Armstrong and you power scale him, it's he's stronger than the Hulk. Same as Raiden. Raiden is physically stronger than the Hulk and could probably kill him.
Well, that's the thing, is just regular Raiden in that game, especially with his broken as fuck sword, is so strong.
Yeah, and you always forget it because he's fighting other people as strong as he is. But when I explain that on a stream once, they're like, well, this is Metal Gear Excelsius. This thing, I think one art book says it weighs a couple 100 tons, but people have that's probably a conservative estimate. It's close to a couple 1,000 tons. It's the size of a fucking football stadium, and it's made of steel and titanium.
Mm-hmm.
Raiden flips it, and then he physically gets stalemated in a test of strength by Armstrong.
And then it's isn't it as well that, is it Metal Gear Ray that Raiden just
throws into the air,
cuts to pieces in 10 seconds?
Yeah, and he throws it 300 feet into the air with his worst body. His worst cyborg body, that's 1/100th the strength of his new one.
Yeah, Raiden in that game is Raiden, sorry.
Yep.
Raiden's the Mortal Kombat character.
Yep.
Raiden in that game is insanely strong, but because the only people in that game that are fighting him are basically as strong as he is, it doesn't really show very well.
You don't really think of him as being that strong until you think about what he actually does. And it's if Raiden could probably stalemate the Hulk for a little bit.
Yeah, that's the thing, is just how quickly could Raiden deal with the Hulk before Hulk's incredible amount of like regeneration and stuff kicks in.
Yeah, that's the thing. If he can cut through Armstrong.
Well, I mean, Wolverine puts up a pretty good fight against the Hulk, right?
And Wolverine can't lift 1,000 tons. Mm-hmm. He's only got indestructible bones. Raiden's indestructible and just as strong. And he's got a sword. It's fun, right? And that's one of the things I enjoy about that. If you look at characters objectively in terms of what they're actually physically capable of, you realise, man, there's a lot of characters who are a lot weaker or a lot stronger than you'd expect because they only fight people who, like, you know, the writers say they can beat. Like Spider-Man, right? Lifting an entire building and they make him fight like regular street criminals every day.
Yeah, or just the fact that, again, as I say, like Spider-Man's regular day-to-day just superhero activities is fighting 6 different guys at once who all have a variety of bullshit powers.
Great. But, you know, story for another day.
I mean, yeah, definitely. But, yeah, thank you all for watching and listening, and hope everyone has a lovely day.
Cheers, Ron.